Chapter 1924. Of course, no one would question the fortune-teller's words. Even if some people knew very well that the fortune-teller would not be able to divine anything related to Zichin, they still chose to believe him. This was because Zichin was the only thing they firmly believed in. He could be considered as their faith. Once they lost their faith, there would be no more hope. Shang Guanhong was still grieving because his father had followed the governor into battle in the first battle and had never returned. In fact, when the first batch of people left, everyone knew that once they left, they would never return. The foreign tribes had invaded and a great war had erupted. All the highest-ranking managers in the 108 cities of Shantian Prefecture, such as the governor and the manager of Hunter's Castle, had died in the first battle. Not a single survivor had survived. Even the governor, Tang Nuo, had died in battle. While they were looking forward to Zi Chen's return, Shantian Dao and the others were also worried about Man Shi and Wu Xia. They did not know how the two of them were doing. In this chaotic world, no one could guarantee that they would not die. Perhaps the two of them had already met with misfortune. Apart from the two of them, Dong Qing and Jin Qingqing's situation was unknown as well. Although they had gone to the Sword Sect and there were many Heaven Realm experts in the Sword Sect, there were naturally Heaven Realm experts among the invading foreign tribes as well. Just the 9th continent alone had sent too many Heaven Realm experts, let alone the other continents. If it were not for the Heaven Realm experts of the native continents bringing the invading Heaven Realm experts to other places, the entire Shantian Prefecture would probably have collapsed in the Great War and ceased to exist. Over the past few days, Huping City had expanded once again. Black holes that poured in vitality would occasionally appear in the sky. If it were any other time, the entire city would definitely be cheering and celebrating. However, every time a black hole appeared, it meant that another city in Shantian Prefecture had been destroyed. Everyone's mood was extremely heavy. As more cities were destroyed, the foreign tribes that had destroyed other cities would definitely rush over to provide support. At that time, would Huping City be able to hold on in the face of the foreign tribes' constant attacks? This was a question that everyone with heavy hearts could not help but ponder. An ear-piercing alarm rang out once more. This was the second invasion of the foreign tribes that day. Shang Guanhong's mood grew heavier and heavier because the invasion of the alien races had gradually increased from once every 3 days to twice a day. Obviously, new alien races had joined in. Standing on top of the city wall and looking out through the light screen, those non-humankind beings were divided into different groups. After this period of fighting, Shang Guanhong had already seen that these foreign races were not united and would occasionally quarrel with each other. If he had a strong army by his side, Shang Guanhong was confident that he could completely defeat them. Unfortunately, without such a team, there was no way to take advantage of this fatal flaw. Looking back, the statue of Zichin was still standing tall. His eyes were deep and bright as he stared into the distance. "When can you come back?" Shang Guanhong murmured. After the great battle, she no longer had so many emotions in her heart. Ever since she chose to give up, her heart had gradually calmed down. Now, she only hoped that Huping City could be preserved, that there was still that last piece of pure land here. When he looked outside the city again, the two sides had already clashed. Blood splattered everywhere. Amidst the flashes of swords and sabers, deaths immediately occurred. Suddenly, Shang Guanhong's expression changed slightly. She saw 2 more alien races rushing over from 2 directions. Their numbers were more than 3 times that of the original group. The others obviously also noticed this scene, and exclamations continuously sounded. The twins gave the signal to retreat. Already weak to begin with, they once again activated the formation to protect everyone as they retreated. However, the effect was not obvious. A group of alien races stuck close to them, and cultivators fell one after another. When they reached the designated teleportation range, there were less than 10 people left in the group. Whoosh! With a flash of light, 10 people appeared in the city. At the same time, there were 3 undying supremes. However, these 3 people were faced with a large number of sabers, as well as the suppression of the pseudo-heaven's aura. Their undying origin was forcibly destroyed, and they died in Huping City. Swede was a pseudo-heaven with extraordinary combat strength from the Stata planet. This time he led a small team with as many as 100,000 people in this invasion. Unfortunately, they were still unable to break into the city. As his allies returned victorious, he became more and more anxious, so he sent more cultivators over. Through the great city barrier array, he could see the tallest building in the city. It was a human statue. Every time he looked at the statue, he felt as if the statue was looking at him with a mocking expression. He was very unhappy and irritated. As more and more troops returned, he increased the frequency of his attacks. Swede, you actually can't take down a small city after so long. If this news spreads to the Stata planet, it will damage your reputation. A mocking voice sounded, and a tall, middle-aged pseudo-heaven walked over. Tattoo, I have already said that this city is no small matter. You have also seen the attacks over the past few days. There are still many experts in the city, and there are also those damned array masters. Although my method is slower, it can reduce the number of deaths to a minimum. Tattoo smiled disdainfully when he heard Swede's sophistry, but in his heart he greatly admired his opponent's method. The foreign invaders this time came from various planets, and some of them were even enemies. In the eyes of outsiders, the foreign invaders seemed endless, but these endless foreign invaders were divided into many planetary forces. Nobody would be foolish enough to send their own people to their deaths in vain. This was especially true in a city like this, where many forces were needed to attack if they couldn't take it down in one go. It was obvious that the foreign invaders were not united. Many of the forces among them were clearly not putting in any effort. Even so, as troops attacked one after another, the entire Huping city found it difficult to deal with. This battle lasted for half a year. After half a year, the cultivators in Huping city no longer appeared. Instead, they all chose to defend. Now, groups of cultivators were gathering in all directions of the city. Their energy was continuously injected into the Great City Barrier Array to maintain its operation. Outside the Great City Barrier Array, the foreign invaders were as dense as locusts, constantly attacking the Great City Barrier Array. Attack with all your might. A cold voice rang out. Not only was Swede enraged by the attacks that had lasted for half a year, but the other leaders were also furious. The failure to take down the Great City Barrier Array after such a long time had affected their progress. They could not help but mock them. All the foreign invaders took to the air and launched various attacks on the Great City Barrier Array. However, all they could do was cause ripples. The barrier's defense was beyond the imagination of all the foreign invaders. The attacks caused ripples on the Great City Barrier Array. The Great City Barrier Array did not seem to be damaged at all, but all the cultivators in the city were actually using up their energy. If it were not for the fact that the life force here had become even denser and everyone's energy recovery speed was several times faster than usual, the Great City Barrier Array would have shattered long ago. Even so, as the powerful attacks landed, people constantly coughed up large mouthfuls of blood and retreated with heavy injuries. Whenever someone retreated, someone would immediately take their place. Both sides were using up their energy, just like that. For the entire Huping city, the day of the city's breach was already counting down. If no miracle happened, the Great City Barrier Array would be breached when everyone's energy was depleted. Chi, chi, chi among the ripples, sharp blades appeared from the Great City Barrier Array and flew toward the foreign invaders. Instantly, a large number of foreign invaders fell from the sky. Most of their avatars were killed, and a small number of them were heavily injured. Damn it. Sweat's expression turned even uglier. With a wave of his sleeve, a violent energy surged out and landed on the Great City Barrier Array, causing even larger ripples. His attack directly caused over 100 cultivators to cough up blood and fall unconscious. Immediately after, new cultivators took their place. As the attacks continued, the ripples on the Great City Barrier Array grew larger and larger. Clearly, the Great City Barrier Array was at its limit. Almost all the cultivators in the city were heavily injured. The twins were also coughing up blood continuously. They were severely injured, but they were still holding on. Buzz! The great city barrier array began to shake and distort wildly. It looked like it was about to collapse. Attack! The great city barrier array is about to be breached. When Sweat saw this, a cold glint flashed in his eyes as he shouted loudly. More and more attacks rained down like raindrops. After half a day, the great city barrier array could no longer hold on. Cracks appeared on it, and the cracks continued to spread under the attacks. The appearance of the cracks directly pronounced everyone's death. The cultivators in the city who were still holding on were in complete despair. Some of the heavily injured cultivators turned around and looked at the towering statue. It was their only hope. Lord Zichin, we have always respected you. Now that a great disaster is upon us, can you help us? Some of the heavily injured cultivators knelt before Zi Chen's statue. Their kneeling revealed their helplessness and despair. Their kneeling caused a chain reaction. Even more heavily injured cultivators knelt. Zi Chen was their only hope, but Zi Chen's real body did not come. In their despair, they hoped for a miracle. Shangguan Hong shook her head. She was already in despair. Fortune Teller and Xin Dao also shook their heads. A statue could not help them at all. The cracks on the great city barrier array had already spread to its limit. It looked like it was about to explode. Buzz! Just as all the cultivators in the city were in despair, Zichen's statue suddenly trembled. Then, 2 rays of solidified energy suddenly shot out from the statue's deep and bright eyes. These 2 rays of energy landed on the great city barrier array. The great city barrier array, which was about to reach its critical point, was replenished with energy. The cracks that appeared were instantly repaired. Then, the entire great city barrier array took shape again, emitting a bright, colorful light. Such an unforeseen event stunned the cultivators in the city. They subconsciously turned around to look at the statue. Their faces were blank. Those kneeling on the ground, who were in despair, were also dumbfounded at this moment. They did not expect that their kneeling really had an effect. The statue of Zi Qin really showed its spirit. Compared to the shocked and dazed crowd, the foreign races outside were flustered and exasperated. Chapter 1925. The statue of Zi Chen in Huping City was to commemorate Zi Chen's contributions to Huping City in the prefecture realm. The statue had been there for more than 2,000 years. In these 2,000 years, because Zi Chen had created too many miracles, all of Zi Chen's deeds were recorded in the Zi Chen Pavilion for future generations to remember. It could be said that Zi Chen was the idol of all the cultivators in the city. He was their faith and spiritual pillar. The fact that everyone could withstand the invasion of the other tribes for so long was also inseparable from the faith in their hearts. In this critical moment of life and death, they chose to seek help from their faith. This was completely a subconscious thought and action. Many cultivators knelt down one after another. They did not hold any hope at first, but they did not expect the statue of Zi Qin to actually have a reaction. As the light in the statue's eyes turned into energy and landed on the array formation that was about to shatter, the entire array formation was completely restored and blocked a new round of invasion by the other tribes. Seeing this scene, many cultivators knelt on the ground and exclaimed that it was a miracle. It really manifested. Shangguan Hong turned around and looked at the towering statue with disbelief in her beautiful eyes. Could it be that the many years of worship made this statue gain sentience? Shen, Tiandao, and Fortune Teller also turned around and looked up at the statue's eyes. The energy just now was released from there. Shen Tiandao looked at Fortune Teller in confusion. Fortune Teller sized up the statue with his spiritual senses, but did not find anything unusual. He could not deduce anything about Zi Qin, so he shook his head, indicating that he did not know. Long Fei, who was seriously injured, looked at the statue with a bewildered expression. The others around were also shocked. The statue had manifested sentience, which undoubtedly meant that it had gained sentience. However, under normal circumstances, sentient statues would not be very strong. How could it block the attack of the other tribes? The twins knew very well how strong that energy was. It was more than the sum of all the cultivators in the city. The current array formation did not need the two of them to maintain it at all and could last for more than a month. Although many people in the city could not understand the help of the statue, it did not stop them from feeling happy and excited. In the city, many despairing cultivators began to kowtow piously to the statue. Meanwhile, outside the city through the array formation, Swede, who saw that the array formation was about to be broken, had a smug and sinister smile on his face. As long as the city's array formation was broken, all the cultivators in the city would die. In addition, Swede also saw many good-looking female cultivators in the city. Due to the many days of fighting, he could use them to relax. Among them, there was a female cultivator who seemed to be a leader. Her beauty was considered top-notch on the Stav planet. Just as the formation was about to break, the eyes of that damned statue suddenly lit up. The light recharged the formation with energy, restoring the formation that was about to collapse to its original state. Swede was stunned at first, but then his expression changed. His expression became extremely cold, and his eyes were cold. He stared at Zi Chen's statue and said coldly, "Damn thing! The day I break through the city will be the day you die." "Sweet, what happened? Isn't the formation about to break?" Tattoo came over when he heard the news. He looked at the restored formation with a look of surprise. "It's that damned statue." It suddenly released a burst of energy. Swede said coldly through gritted teeth. As the two pseudo-heavens were talking, the other pseudo-heavens also had ugly expressions. They all ordered their subordinates to attack the formation. The foreign races were trying to break the formation again. They did not notice that behind them, a young man dressed in black with the same face as the statue was walking toward them, step by step. His pace was not fast. Every step he took was neither fast nor slow. However, he, who had been on the horizon just a moment ago, arrived behind the foreign races in just a few short steps. There were many foreign races in front of him, but the young man did not stop. He stepped forward again. A mysterious energy fluctuation spread out in all directions with the young man as the center. Wherever the energy ripples passed, the void seemed to freeze and the space seemed to stop. This energy swept past the foreign races. These foreign races did not have time to react. Their bodies were cut in half by this energy. The upper and lower halves of their bodies slowly fell to the ground. The young man walked forward step by step. The ripples continued to spread, and more foreign races were cut in half. They did not notice it at all. When they realized this abnormality, they wanted to shout for help in horror, but they found that their voices could not be heard. Like a landscape, all the foreign race cultivators were sent flying to the sides as the young man walked forward. They flew backward very slowly, and in the process their bodies were separated and their lives were extinguished. The young man's expression was cold. He did not say a word as he walked forward. His black robe fluttered to the sides, and energy spread out like waves. A large number of foreign races died. "Who are you? What are you doing?" Finally, a foreign race cultivator noticed the abnormality and shouted at the black-robed young man. "Pooh!" A burst of energy shot out from the young man's body. This energy immediately pierced through the foreign race cultivator's forehead. The foreign race cultivator's body fell backward, dead. However, this cry of surprise attracted the attention of the other foreign races. They all turned around and saw this unfamiliar human. "He's from the Zhan Wu continent. Kill him! Everyone, attack with all your might. Kill him!" From the black-robed young man's body, they could feel a different aura. Thus, they all roared and surrounded the black-robed young man. Energy surged, and a group of foreign race cultivators appeared from all directions. They flew towards the black-robed young man, and their weapons flashed with a cold light. A powerful aura was released. The energy swept up the young man's black robe, and his black hair fluttered in the wind. The young man's expressionless face was revealed. A golden energy, like a golden ripple, vibrated out from the young man's body. Under this ripple of energy, the speed of the foreign race cultivators decreased greatly. It was as if they were in a quagmire. Their attacks were also weakened. This is the pressure of a heaven realm cultivator feeling this golden ripple. All the foreign race cultivators were shocked. However, only one of them let out a cry of surprise before he died. The golden ripple of light swept across the foreign race cultivators. Their bodies were directly cut open by the light. Severed limbs fell from the sky, and blood poured down like rain. In the blink of an eye, the foreign race cultivators charging forward were dead. What's going on? Damn it, what's going on? Another cry of surprise rang out. Finally, a pseudo-heaven realm cultivator sensed the abnormality and came over. Swit and Tattoo frowned when they saw the large number of dead foreign tribe members in the distance. Then they flew in that direction. But as they flew over, the two of them suddenly felt an oppressive aura in the air. When they sensed this aura that only pseudo-heaven realm cultivators could sense, their expressions changed. Heaven realm? How can it be heaven realm cultivator? Didn't all the heaven realm cultivators go to the void to fight? Tattoo's face was full of disbelief. At the same time, his gaze followed the dead foreign race cultivators and saw the black-robed young man. When he saw the young man's appearance, Tattoo's pupils shrank. It's him. Damn it, how can this be? Sweat also saw the young man's appearance and cursed in exasperation. Just now, he had threatened to destroy the statue after breaking through the city. Who would have thought that the statue's owner would appear in the next moment, and as a heaven realm cultivator at that? Stop for me. There was no time for Sweat to hesitate. He rushed forward and shouted at the heaven realm young man as he did so. At this moment, the young man was still moving forward. The foreign race cultivators were still dying. If he went a little later, even more of them would die. The black-robed young man was Zichin. Along the way, he had seen too many cities destroyed. He wouldn't have stopped back then. Sweat stood in front of Zichin. The other pseudo-heavens appeared and surrounded Zichin. Do you know the rules? The battlefield for heaven realm cultivators isn't here. Looking at the heaven realm cultivator who stopped, Sweat suppressed the anger in his heart and said coldly to Zichin. Zichin, who had stopped, looked up at Sweat and said coldly, "Are you saying that I don't know the rules?" "Of course," Sweat said righteously. This time, so many heaven realm cultivators came, but none of them invaded this place. This is the rule. If a heaven realm cultivator attacked, this city would have been destroyed long ago. Heaven realm cultivators have their own battlefield. You've come to the wrong place. After Zichin heard this, he couldn't help but laugh. You came to my territory to burn, kill, and loot, and you're saying that I don't follow the rules? This kind of logic made Zichin speechless. In fact, there was really nothing to say to this kind of invading foreign race. Zichin's eyes flashed with killing intent. Although you're a heaven realm cultivator, you have to think clearly. Once you attack us, you'll be breaking the rules. Next, there will be several times more heaven realm cultivators than you coming to this city. Sweat stared at Zichin and said, "The rules are not to be broken. I'm born to break the rules." As soon as Zichin finished speaking, he took a step forward. A heavenly weapon surging with the aura of metal, lightning, and fire appeared. With a thought from Zichin, the heavenly weapon cut through the sky and flew forward. Lightning saber manipulation. We have so many pseudo-heaven realm cultivators. How could... Sweat's face was filled with anger. They had so many people. How could a heaven realm cultivator kill them all? However, before he could finish his words, the heavenly weapon pierced through his forehead. The immortal source that he was so proud of seemed to have met its nemesis and was instantly extinguished. The saber spirit turned into a tricolored light and circled around Zichin. In this circle, a total of 12 pseudo-heaven realm cultivators' heads were pierced, their immortal source extinguished, and their bodies fell straight back. One strike killed 12 pseudo-heaven realm cultivators. When the other foreign races saw this, their faces were also filled with horror. They turned around and ran back, killing 12 pseudo-heaven realm cultivators in one strike. Wouldn't it be very easy to kill them? The foreign races began to flee, and the foreign races that had been besieging the array quickly scattered. Chapter 1926. Read the whole thing. Looking at the figure in the crowd, Shangguan Hong was first stunned, then her face was filled with disbelief. However, the figure clearly existed. Golden energy constantly surged out of his body. None of the foreign races who came into contact with the golden energy survived. She blinked her beautiful eyes again in disbelief. The figure was still there. Shangguan Hong cried tears of joy. She knew that this was not an illusion, but something that had really happened. He had returned. In Huping City, many excited cultivators were still kneeling and worshipping the statue. The explosion of energy from the foreign race's attack on the defensive formation was still echoing in their ears. However, at some point in time, the sound had gradually decreased until it disappeared. Everyone was puzzled. They looked up at the formation, but they could no longer see any of the foreign races attacking the formation. What's going on? Why have the foreign races all disappeared? Someone looked up at the sky and muttered to himself. He was very puzzled. The others looked up as well. As expected, they could not see any foreign races. The foreign races had been attacking the city for a very long time. Everyone did not believe that the foreign races could retreat so easily. Thus, they all rose into the air and looked outside the city. At that moment, the foreign races were like a black flood outside the city, trying to escape. Some were in the sky, while others were on the ground. Through the light barrier, one could still see the panic and fear on their faces. Boom! The sky suddenly exploded without warning. A huge black hole appeared. The black hole was filled with a destructive aura, directly enveloping a large number of foreign races. When the foreign races entered the black hole, they were directly crushed by the energy. Crack, crack. The foreign races that fled in the sky would occasionally encounter the black hole and face the danger of being swallowed by the black hole at any time. However, the foreign races that fled on the ground were also in fatal danger. The ground would crack without warning. The destructive energy would constantly sweep out. None of the foreign races that fell into the cracked ground came out alive. The sky collapsed. The earth cracked. The outside world was completely destroyed. However, all the cultivators in Huping City did not feel anything abnormal at all. The entire city stood steadily. Could it be that the heavens felt that the foreign races were too cruel, so they sent down heavenly punishment? Is this heavenly punishment? Most of the cultivators in Huping City called this a heavenly punishment. However, in the next moment, there were exclamations. Look, there's a person there, a human. Yes, a human in black. He looks very familiar. Bulsh, *T, familiar. Open your eyes wide and look, that's Zichin. It's Lord Zichin. It's really Lord Zichin. The outsiders retreated because of Lord Zichin. Haha, Lord Zichin has returned. Huping City is safe now. Cries of surprise rang out one after another. After recognizing Zichin, the entire city was filled with cheers. Zichin was their ultimate belief, their spiritual pillar. Now that their spiritual pillar had returned, the despairing Huping City finally had hope. As expected, he's back. Shen Tian stared at Zichen's silhouette and murmured in excitement. Yeah, he came back just in time, and he's even stronger than before. There was an excited smile on Xuantian's face. Then he turned around and glanced at Zichen's statue. It was obvious that the scene just now was because of Zichin. Heaven collapse and earth rend. That's a technique that only Heaven Realm cultivators can use. I didn't expect Zi-Chin to have entered the Heaven Realm first. Long Fei sighed. There was no jealousy in his words, only relief and excitement. Outside the city, Zi-Chun glanced at the fleeing outsiders. The sky had collapsed, and a large number of outsiders had died. Then, Zi-Chin glanced to the ground. The ground cracked like a giant beast devouring more outsiders. If a Heaven Realm cultivator was determined to kill, no one could stop him except for Heaven Realm cultivators. Because there were too many outsiders attacking Huping City, it was impossible to kill all of them with such a killing method. With a cold expression, Zi-Chin frowned and began to release his aura. This was the aura of a Heaven Realm cultivator. It spread out and covered an area of hundreds of miles. Under the pressure of this Heaven Realm cultivator, all the outsiders seemed to have been immobilized. Their charging bodies instantly stopped, and the frightened expressions on their faces froze. Under the attention of the cultivators in the city, time seemed to have completely stopped at this moment. The fleeing outsiders didn't move at all. Even the black hole that had exploded in the sky was no longer repaired. Zi-Chen stood where he was, motionless. However, this state of stillness only lasted for a moment. In the next moment, a cold voice came from Zi-Chen's mouth. Explode! As soon as this word was spoken, the still space returned to normal. In the sky, the bodies of the outsiders exploded one after another. In the sky, energy exploded. It was colorful and looked like dazzling fireworks. After the brilliance, it returned to silence. Among the outsiders who had exploded, there were many undying sovereigns. However, in front of Zi-Chin, they were no different from other cultivators. The moment their bodies exploded, their undying origin was completely destroyed. Within hundreds of miles, except for a city and Zi-Chin, there were no other signs of life. All the invading outsiders had died in an instant. This was the means of a Heaven Realm cultivator. It was simple and easy for one person to destroy a city. The rule that the outsider had mentioned earlier was actually very reasonable. If a Heaven Realm cultivator had joined in, Huping City would have long ceased to exist. However, Zi-Chun would definitely not abide by this rule. His Tao was to break the rules and destroy all the inequality in the world. Seeing that the outsiders within hundreds of miles had all died in an instant, the cultivators in the city were all stunned. They were all seriously injured. When they saw that Zi-Chun had returned, although they were very excited, they couldn't join in. Joining the battlefield under such circumstances would only be courting death. In their eyes, Zi-Chin, who had returned, only needed to drive away these outsiders. However, who would have thought that they, who didn't have high expectations, would see the scene of all the outsiders dying? One move. With just one move, Zi-Chin had killed all the outsiders. After the bodies of the dead outsiders exploded, they turned into nothingness. There wasn't even a bloody scene on the battlefield. Such a method was undoubtedly something that only a Heaven Realm cultivator could do. It was obvious that Zi-Chin had entered the Heaven Realm. After a short moment of silence, the cultivators in Huping City erupted into thunderous cheers. They were cheering for Zi-Chen's return and welcoming the return of the king. Buzz. The twins, who had just recovered a little, formed seals with their hands again. This light shield that had not been removed since the invasion of the outsiders dissipated today. Immediately after, streaks of light rushed out of the city and flew toward Zi-Chen excitedly. Zi-Chen stood in the air and looked at these familiar people. A smile appeared on his cold face. He saw fortune teller, Shantian Dao, Shangguan Hong, Long Fei, and some other familiar people. Zi-Chin, welcome back. Everyone came closer with excited expressions. Zi-Chen nodded and scanned everyone with a spiritual sense. Everyone's realms were clear to him. Then, Zi-Chen frowned slightly and asked, "Where are Wu Xie and Manshur?" Everyone shook their heads. Shangguan Hong said, "I don't know. They haven't been back for a long time." "Where's the city lord?" As the highest steward of Huping City, City Lord Mu Feng was not here. This made Zi Qin very puzzled. Everyone's expressions immediately darkened. Zi Qin had already guessed the reason. The invasion of the outsiders brought an unimaginable disaster to this area. Now, of the 108 cities in Shantian Prefecture, only Huping City is still intact, Long Fei said. Even Shantian Prefecture has fallen. Prefecture Master Tang Nuo and the old Prefecture Master also died in battle. Although Zi Qin had some understanding of the situation in Shantian Prefecture and knew that it was not optimistic after facing the outsiders, he did not expect it to be so bad. It could be said that the entire Shantian Prefecture was retreating in defeat against the outsiders. Where are the Heaven Realm experts? Zi Qin asked. He believed that as long as there was a Heaven Realm expert in Shantian Prefecture would not fall. Long Fei shook his head and said, "The Heaven Realm experts have another battlefield. Moreover, the destructive power formed by the battle between the Heaven Realm experts is really terrifying. Just the aftermath of the battle is not something that the city can withstand. Our Heaven Realm experts have blocked the invading Heaven Realm experts in the void." Zi Qin nodded. This should be the rule that Sweet had mentioned earlier. Since the rule was broken, there would be Heaven Realm experts from the outsiders coming here soon. However, Zi Qin did not care. As long as one Heaven Realm expert came, he would kill one. With Zi Qin in charge, Huping City was naturally safe. Immediately after, all the cultivators began to heal their injuries. At the same time, the forces that stayed here were also thinking of ways to send out signals and summon their other clansmen. All the outsiders who went to Huping City had died. Those outsiders also sensed it in their hearts. Not knowing the situation, they gathered the outsiders' army again and set off toward Huping City. 10 days later, there were new invasions. These invasions surrounded Huping City. However, when they saw Zi Qin standing in the sky above Huping City, astonishment appeared on the faces of all the foreign races. It's a Heaven Realm expert. So there's a Heaven Realm expert who disregarded the rules and forcibly guarded this place. No wonder those people from before all died. Since they deliberately broke the rules, don't blame us for being rude. When the outsiders saw Zi Qin, they did not show the fear that they should have. When the outsiders invaded, they did not lack powerhouses. If the outsiders dared to have one Heaven Realm expert, then there would be 2 on their side. The outsiders surrounded them but did not attack. They were waiting for their Heaven Realm experts to arrive. Zi Qin did not make a move either. He was also waiting for the Heaven Realm experts. This time, they did not wait for long. After only 2 days, the Heaven Realm experts of the outsiders had arrived. Moreover, there were 2 of them. The 2 Heaven Realm experts glanced at Zi Qin from afar, and their expressions turned cold. One of them said to Zi Qin coldly, "You're the first to break the rules. We'll start with you. Die." Chapter 1927. The 2 Heaven Realm experts looked at Zi Qin with cold expressions. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent. The Heavenly Tao's rules were currently in chaos, and the Undying Origin was greatly restricted. Even Heaven Realm experts, who were usually difficult to kill, would die now. The situation was 1 against 2, and they had the advantage in numbers. The army formed by the aliens seemed very confident. When they raised their heads and looked at the towering Huping City in front of them, coldness flashed in their eyes from time to time. Huping City was the only city left in Shantian Prefecture's sphere of influence. However, it was this city that delayed the advance of the alien army. Kill! The 2 aliens were both extremely tall. As their cold voices faded, the 2 Heaven Realm experts charged at Zi Qin at the same time. As they charged forward, the Heavenly Tao's origin surged with destructive energy waves. The waves spread everywhere, and some of them went straight to Huping City below. Buzz! Above Huping City, light surged, and the city protecting formation appeared. A transparent energy shield completely covered Huping City, blocking the vibrating heaven realm energy outside. With Zichen's existence, the twins also used Zichin, a free heaven realm expert, to refine the formation of the entire Huping City. The formation's power had increased greatly, although they did not dare to say that they could resist the attack of a heaven realm expert head-on. They would have no problem blocking the energy waves of a heaven realm expert. Swoosh! As they charged forward, the two heaven realm experts split up and attacked Zichin from both sides. Looking at the two aliens, a cold look flashed in Zichen's eyes. He clenched his fists, and golden light flashed around him. As he took a step forward, two fist auras tore through the space and went toward the two heaven realm experts. The battle of the heaven realm experts above Huping City began. Boom! Boom! The fist auras exploded in the sky, and the energy reverberated in the sky, forming a destructive energy that spread out. Two outsider heaven realm experts charged out of the raging energy. Their faces were slightly pale, and they looked at Zichin with a hint of surprise in their eyes. Based on the exchange just then, the duo could sense that Zichin was not weak. They originally thought that he had just entered Heaven Realm and that they would be able to easily deal with him, so they thought that he might cause them some trouble. The two of them quickly retreated. After exchanging glances, one of them charged toward Zichin, while the other chose to retreat again. The person who rushed forward clenched his right hand into a fist and punched at Zichin. A dazzling fist aura filled the heavens and the earth. The terrifying energy vibrated in all directions, causing ripples to appear on the light barrier of Huping City. The fist radiance moved forward in a straight line. The source of heaven and earth appeared and gathered towards the fist radiance. The fist radiance was already terrifying. After absorbing the source of heaven and earth, its power increased by a large margin. Clearly, this was a type of Heaven's Path technique, and it was being unleashed in the form of fist light. The Leaping Heaven Fist was a famous heavenly Tao technique on the Leaping King Star. It was extremely powerful. Among the alien races, the invaders from the Leaping King Star cheered when they saw the Heaven Realm expert using the Leaping Heaven Fist. In their opinion, the Heaven Realm expert would definitely lose once the Leaping Heaven Fist was unleashed. Energy surged. Zichin stood in the air, his black hair dancing wildly. Facing this powerful attack, he did not dodge. Instead, he punched out. The golden fist radiance, which was not a heavenly Tao technique, carried a power that was not weaker than the heavenly Tao technique, and it landed on the Leaping Heaven Fist. Boom! The two fist radiances collided in the sky and exploded one after another. The terrifying energy tore the space apart, causing the light barrier of Huping City to tremble. However, it managed to block the attack. The Heaven Realm expert from the Leaping King Star was shocked when he saw Zichin block his heavenly Tao technique so easily. The cheers that were still resounding in the heavens and the earth also stopped in an instant. All the alien races looked at the sky in astonishment. They looked at the Heaven Realm expert, who was not very tall. They never thought that such a powerful heavenly Tao technique could be countered by the Heaven Realm expert in such a way. Moreover, it seemed to be very easy for him to do so. Mysterious in heavenly fire change. A cold voice suddenly resounded in the heavens and the earth. The Heaven Realm expert, who had just retreated, completed the seal in his hand. A ball of flame appeared in front of him. Unlike ordinary flames, this ball of flame did not emit a scorching heat. Instead, it emitted a chilling coldness. The moment this ball of heavenly fire with a chilling aura appeared, it turned into a flaming spear. As the Heaven Realm expert's cold eyes fell on Zichin, the flaming spear trembled slightly and shot toward Zichin. The flaming spear was very fast. Wherever it passed, a thin black line appeared in the void. If one looked closely, they would see ashes flying out from the black line. That was the space that had been burned. Obviously, this was another heavenly Tao technique. In the face of this attack, Chen's counterattack was as simple as before. He clenched his fist and punched out. Golden light illuminated the heavens and the earth. When the owner of the flaming spear saw this scene, he could not help but sneer. His heavenly Tao technique was almost as powerful as heavenly fire. Who could resist heavenly fire with their physical body? But in the next moment, a scene that shocked him appeared. The powerful golden fist landed on the flaming spear. The fist trembled slightly and then exploded. The flaming spear also exploded. This is impossible. The Heaven Realm expert stared at the exploding flaming spear and exclaimed. Suddenly his eyes narrowed. He saw Chen, who was in the distance, appear in front of him in a flash. His speed was so fast that it was beyond his expectations. Then a golden fist appeared in his eyes. The fist rapidly enlarged in his pupils. Facing Chen's fist, the Heaven Realm expert wanted to dodge. But suddenly he realized that the space around him had become extremely viscous. His speed was greatly affected. Bang! In an instant, the fist landed on his body. A powerful force entered his body, and the Heaven Realm expert's body exploded. Seeing that their own Heaven Realm expert had exploded so easily, the alien race's faces were filled with shock. Even the Heaven Realm expert, who was rushing towards Chen, paused for a moment. Swoosh! After exploding a Heaven Realm expert with a punch, Chen's figure flashed again. His figure disappeared and reappeared in front of the Heaven Realm expert. In the midst of the violent energy and the pressure of the Heaven Realm expert, he was still able to use a speed comparable to teleportation. This made the Heaven Realm expert's face turn ugly, because just this speed alone was enough to make him invincible against the two Heaven Realm experts. Before the Heaven Realm expert from the Leaping King planet could make his next move, the fist landed on his body. Boom! His body also exploded. Seeing the bodies of the two Heaven Realm experts explode, the alien race was completely stunned. Their eyes were fixed on Chen. It seemed that from the beginning of the battle until now, this human Heaven Realm expert did not use any Heaven Realm technique. He only used his fist to suppress the two Heaven Realm experts. The flames of life burned, and the bodies of the two Heaven Realm experts reassembled. Feeling that their vitality had been reduced by half in an instant, their faces were filled with shock. If they continued fighting like this, the other party only needed 2 more punches, and the 2 of them would become the first Heaven Realm experts to die among the alien race that invaded the Zhan-Wu continent. Run! The 2 of them looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. So, they chose to run without hesitation. This time, they had underestimated the other party's strength. They could only go back and bring a few more Heaven Realm experts. Can you escape? Chen raised his head. On his handsome face, his cold eyes swept across the 2. His indifferent voice resounded through the world. What? The 2 Heaven Realm experts want to escape? Did I hear wrong? In a situation of 1 against 2, the ones who are escaping are actually 2 Heaven Realm experts? All kinds of surprised voices rang out from the alien race army. Although they could see that the 2 Heaven Realm experts did not have the upper hand, they did not expect that the 2 Heaven Realm experts would choose to escape. Boom! As Chen's voice fell, the sky suddenly shook. A burning cauldron appeared. The cauldron exuded an ancient and vast aura. After it appeared, it rushed toward one of the Heaven Realm experts. The cauldron was very fast. It arrived first and hit the Heaven Realm expert from the Leaping King star. The latter staggered and coughed up a mouthful of blood. His body uncontrollably rushed forward. The cauldron's lid opened and fire dragons rushed out. They caught up with the Heaven Realm expert at an extremely fast speed. Then they wrapped around his body and dragged him back. During this time, the Heaven Realm expert kept resisting, but the fire dragons were so tight that he could not break free. Amidst a series of screams, he was directly sucked into the cauldron. From the time Chen obtained the cauldron until now, none of the Heaven Realm experts who were sucked in had come out alive. The cauldron took care of one Heaven Realm expert on its own. As for the remaining Heaven Realm expert, Zichun personally took care of him. After knocking him out with 3 punches, Zichun dragged him back and threw him into the cauldron. From the time they escaped until now, only 2 breaths of time had passed. The 2 Heaven Realm experts were caught and thrown into the cauldron. The aliens were completely stunned. Their faces were full of disbelief. In fact, from the time the 2 Heaven Realm experts attacked until now, only a moment had passed. Some of the alien race experts sensed that the situation was not good and had already fled. After easily sucking in the 2 Heaven Realm experts, Zichen's gaze fell on the aliens. To the current Zichen, these people were ants, with a thought he could kill them. Normally, existences like the Heaven Realm experts disdain to fight with ants. But if these ants were very annoying existences, then it was a different story. Run. No one knew who shouted, but the aliens who were in a daze finally reacted. They turned and ran, each of their faces filled with horror. Boom! The sky collapsed. Crack, crack. The earth cracked. Zichen made his move. Even if they were ants, he would not let them go. He would not let these ants go back. As the sky collapsed and the earth cracked, as the Heaven Realm aura spread, the aliens died in droves. In Huping City, the cultivators soared into the air, looking at the aliens dying one after another. Their faces were filled with shock and excitement. In this battle, the new alien army was annihilated. However, there were some who saw that the situation was not good and fled early, so they did not die. After they successfully escaped, they quickly sent the news to the Heaven Realm experts who were fighting in the void. P.S. I'm very sorry. Due to some unforeseen reasons, this book will be updated once a day from today onwards. As for when it will return to the second watch, it has not been decided yet. As for the reason, I will explain it in the group when I have time. Chapter 1928. When the alien invaders invaded, the heavenly realms became their own battlefield. In the void, the alien heavenly realms gathered in one prefecture, while the Shantian prefecture's heavenly realms gathered together. In this prefecture, the Shantian prefecture had 23 heavenly realms, and 4 of them were from the Tiger God Mountain. When the alien invaders invaded, the heavenly realms did not enter the battlefield. Rather than saying that this was some kind of rule, it was more accurate to say that it was meaningless for them to enter the battlefield. A heavenly realm could easily slaughter an entire city. The process was as simple as stepping on ants, and there was no sense of accomplishment. In addition, there were heavenly realms who wanted to stop them, so the alien heavenly realms chose to fight in the void. Originally, the Shantian prefecture had 25 heavenly realms, but unfortunately, 2 of them had died in battle. As for the alien side, they had 30 heavenly realms, but 2 of them had suddenly left, leaving only 28. At the center of the 2 factions, 2 heavenly realms were fighting. Origin energies were constantly surging, and powerful attacks were constantly being displayed. However, in a battle between heavenly realms, as long as the difference between the 2 sides wasn't too great, it was usually very difficult to determine the victor. As for the death of the 2 heavenly realms, it could only be an accident. Bah! To think that I, Patri, came here for your resources. I didn't expect you to be so poor. In the middle of the battle, the alien heavenly realms said with a disdainful expression, beat me first. The Shantian prefecture's heavenly realm expert's expression was cold, and energy surged around him. Pui, do you really think you're some big shot? You don't even know a single decent heaven's path technique. Fighting someone like you is simply embarrassing me, Patri. As the alien's voice fell, a giant silver snake appeared in front of him. The snake was completely formed from Xing Chen's pure energy. After it appeared, it let out a hiss and charged toward the Shantian prefecture's heavenly realm expert. Bang! The starlight snake instantly arrived in front of the Shantian prefecture's heavenly realm expert and hit him in the chest. The latter spat out blood and flew backward. Die. After that attack, Patry laughed savagely and wanted to pursue. Being hit by a heavenly Tao technique, the heavenly realm expert was clearly heavily injured. Hiss! Suddenly, a streak of sword chi descended from the sky with unimaginable might, slicing through space and blocking Patry's path. Stopping his pursuit, Patry's sinister smile didn't diminish. He glanced at the middle-aged man holding a heavenly weapon and sneered, "Wei Qin, even if you can protect them every time, you can't rule out the fact that they are all trash." While speaking, Patry spat at the air, then turned around and confidently returned to the group of non-humankind beings. From afar, he could still hear the other party's unbridled laughter. The middle-aged man named Wei Qin put away his heavenly armament longsword and turned around to look at the heavily injured Heaven Realm expert. He asked in concern, "How are you? Are you all right?" The Heaven Realm expert shook his head and said gratefully, "I'm fine. I just need some time to recover. Thank you for saving me, Lord Wei." Wei Qin nodded and brought this Heaven Realm expert back to Shantian Prefecture. The other Heaven Realm experts surrounded them and asked about their well-being. Looking at these Heaven Realm experts, Wei Qin shook his head, his expression becoming extremely complicated. Normally, as long as one entered the Heaven Realm, they would be a lofty existence, even able to establish an immortal family. However, with the arrival of the Great Era, entering the Heaven Realm had become much easier. If there were no invaders, Heaven Realm experts would still be experts. However, with the invasion of the non-humankind, these Heaven Realm experts created by the Great Era immediately showed their inadequacies in front of the non-humankind. First of all, in terms of comprehension of the Heaven Realm, the new Heaven Realm experts of the Zhan Wu continent were clearly weaker in terms of controlling origin energy. Secondly, although these people had entered the Heaven Realm by chance, they didn't have a matching heavenly Tao technique, which greatly affected their combat strength. This was extremely fatal in front of the non-humankind. Besides the lack of heavenly Tao techniques, heavenly armaments were also greatly lacking. At this moment, of the 23 Heaven Realm experts, only he had a heavenly armament, and there were less than 10 who knew heavenly Tao techniques. The rest only had the strength of a Heaven Realm expert, but none of them had the combat strength of a Heaven Realm expert. Looking at the non-humankind side, there were a total of 5 who had heavenly armaments, and almost all of them knew heavenly Tao techniques. It was obvious who was superior. If he hadn't intentionally helped, many of the Heaven Realm experts on this side would have died during the battles between the two sides. In a situation where they clearly had the upper hand, they didn't kill them. It wasn't because the non-humankind Heaven Realm experts were benevolent, but because they were waiting. They were deliberately waiting for the invading army to arrive. Once the invading army completely conquered this place, it would be the start of the final battle between the heavenly realms. Wei Qin knew this, but he didn't leave. That was because once they left, there would be no hope for Shantian Prefecture. The other Heaven Realm experts also had sorrowful expressions. Wei Qin was extremely vexed. Suddenly, he thought of the 2 non-humankind Heaven Realm experts who had suddenly left. These 2 people suddenly left, and the non-humankind side didn't say anything, causing Wei Qin to be puzzled. Just as Wei Qin's thoughts were running wild, he heard a voice from the other side. "Wei Qin, who are you going to send out for the next battle?" From the non-humankind Heaven Realm experts, a non-humankind without heavenly armaments walked out. However, he dared to call Wei Qin by his name. He glanced at Wei Qin from afar, his expression full of arrogance. This person was called Yi Li Fu. Not only did he possess heavenly Tao techniques, but he was also at stage 2. One of the 2 Heaven Realm experts who had died here was killed by him. When they saw Yi Li Fu, the expressions of the Heaven Realm experts from Shantian Prefecture changed slightly. Fear appeared on many of their faces. Most of them didn't know heavenly Tao techniques, and the death of their companions that day was still vivid in their minds. Looking at the fearful expressions of the Heaven Realm experts from afar, Ilifu sneered disdainfully. His gaze landed on Wei Qin, and he mocked, "Don't tell me you're going to fight next." Ilifu crossed his hands and bent his fingers, his knuckles making a crisp sound. "I haven't warmed up in a long time. I can spar with you." Wei Chen's expression turned ugly. It wasn't that he was afraid of Ilifu, but that, as the only existence with a heavenly armament, he was mainly used as a deterrent. Once they fought head-on, he would definitely be exposed. "I'll do it." Just as Wei Qin was in a dilemma, a burly man with a figure no weaker than the non-human kind walked out. His eyes shone brightly and his face was cold. He stared at Ilifu and said, "If you want to fight, I, Hu Pao, will accompany you." Ilifu narrowed his eyes, and his expression gradually turned cold. His eyes flashed with cold killing intent. "If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." As one of the ancestors of Tiger God Mountain, Hu Pao snorted and prepared to retort. Suddenly, a figure flew over from afar. Through the surging energy around him, he could sense that the other party was from the non-human kind. This was a pseudo-heaven realm expert. When he moved forward, his emotions fluctuated greatly, and his breathing was a little chaotic. It was obvious that he was very flustered. "My lord, it's not good, my lord. Will and Fei Air have been killed." When they were still some distance away, the pseudo-heaven realm experts shouted loudly. Will and Fei Air were two unfamiliar names. When the Shentian Prefecture cultivators heard this, they couldn't help but be puzzled. But when they looked at the non-human kind side, everyone's expression changed. Wei Chen's heart stirred. He suddenly remembered the two heaven realm experts who had left earlier. Could it be that Will and Fei Air were the two of them? But the two of them were people who knew heavenly Tao techniques. Who could kill them? Damn it, what the hell is going on? An angry voice came from among the non-human kind heaven realm experts. One of the heaven realm experts said, "Didn't they say that only one heaven realm expert broke the rules? And he looks very young, only just entered the heaven realm. He's very young, but that heaven realm expert is very strange. Although he doesn't know heavenly Tao techniques, his attacks are very strong, not weaker than heavenly Tao techniques at all." The pseudo-heaven realm expert had already arrived and said in one breath. At this moment, he was panicking and didn't deliberately suppress his voice, so the heaven realm experts on Shentian prefectures side heard it very clearly. Their faces were full of confusion, but when they fully understood what had happened, they were also stunned. The two heaven realm experts who had left to besiege a newly advanced heaven realm expert were actually killed instead. Who was it? Who was it that had managed to kill two heaven realm cultivators by himself without even knowing any heaven Tao techniques? The experts on Shentian Prefecture's side also wanted to know the other party's identity. Li Fu, who had just challenged, immediately turned around and said with a face full of anger, "A mere guy who just entered the heaven realm. Let me go and meet him and see how strong he is." With that, he didn't wait for the pseudo-heaven realm expert to say anything and turned around to leave. Where is he? However, Ilifu didn't forget to ask for the location. "In Huping City," the pseudo-heaven realm expert replied, then suddenly woke up and immediately said, "My lord, you must be careful. That heaven realm expert is very strange, and he has a supreme treasure cauldron on him that can pose a threat to heaven realm experts." The pseudo-heaven shouted from afar, but it would have been better if he didn't shout. With this shout, Ilifu ran even faster. At the same time, his conceited voice came from the horizon. "I'll go and kill him. None of you should come." These words were obviously a warning. He was worried that others would snatch the supreme treasure away. Those foreign heaven realm experts all had regretful expressions, especially those who didn't have heavenly soldiers. They wanted to kick this pseudo-heaven to death. "Why didn't you say you had a treasure earlier?" After winning one battle after another, they didn't put the heaven realm experts of the Zhanwu continent in their eyes at all, and they developed an arrogant and conceited personality. Compared to the regret of the foreign heaven realm experts, the heaven realm experts of Shentian Prefecture had a very strange expression after hearing this sentence. In the entire Zhan Wu continent, there was only one cauldron that could be called a supreme treasure in the eyes of Heaven Realm experts and could threaten them. And that cauldron was even more powerful than a heavenly soldier. It could be called a true supreme treasure. It also had a very resounding name, the Universe Origin Cauldron. This cauldron had disappeared for a long time, but hundreds of years ago, it reappeared in the world. The person who used it was also an existence with great potential. When he was in the pseudo-heaven realm, he had an undefeated record against heaven realm experts. His name was Ziqin, and in the entire Zhan Wu continent, it could be said that he was a household name. If that person was really Ziqin who had entered the heaven realm, then Yilifu, who took the initiative to provoke him, would be in danger. P.S. I originally said that I would update today, but there was something else in the middle. The reason will be explained in the group. Chapter 1929. Yilifu's arrogance was well known among the heaven realm cultivators of the other tribes. Otherwise, he would not have used a second-grade heavenly path technique to provoke Wei Qin, who had a heaven-tier weapon. As the only city in Shantian Prefecture that still existed, Huping City's location was very easy to sense. Yilifu rushed toward Huping City as fast as he could, afraid that others would beat him to it. Although he was usually arrogant and conceited, he was very easily satisfied. Currently, he only had one heavenly path technique, and it was a second-grade one. However, he was already very satisfied, and he did not have any extravagant hopes of obtaining other high-quality techniques. Now, he urgently wanted to obtain a heaven-tier weapon. Even if he could not obtain a heaven-tier weapon, he could at least obtain a cauldron that could threaten a heaven realm cultivator. Thus, he arrived outside Huping City and saw Ziqin, who had been waiting there for a long time. Looking at the excessively young figure in front of him, a hint of surprise appeared on Yilifu's anxious and arrogant face. The other party looked very young, and there was a surging vitality around him. However, he was able to kill 2 heaven realm cultivators by himself. He was indeed extraordinary. However, it was precisely because the other party was too young that when Yilifu saw Ziqin, he did not treat Ziqin as a real enemy at all. Under his surprised expression, there was naturally a hint of disdain. Yilifu looked at Ziqin with a very surprised expression. At the same time, when Ziqin saw that Yilifu had come alone, he was also slightly stunned. He had guessed that the other tribes would arrange for at least 5 heaven realm cultivators or more to come here this time. After all, his previous 1 versus 2 battle did not last long, and his performance was very decisive. As his spiritual senses spread out, Ziqin was very disappointed to find that there was only one person who had come. There was also only one person. Just as Ziqin was in a daze, Yilifu coldly glanced at Ziqin and said indifferently, "You're the one who killed Phil and Will." The man's calmness and confidence caused Ziqin to cast him a glance. He answered calmly, "I just killed 2 heaven realm superhumans. They might be the 2 people you mentioned." Looking at the calm and collected Ziqin, Yilifu's lips curled into a cold smile. "That's right. I didn't expect you to have such a battle record at such a young age. I also heard that you have a huge cauldron on you. It's extraordinary and is also your trump card. Take it out and let me see it." It was a request, but the tone was more like an order. Hearing the other party's words, Ziqin seemed to understand the other party's intentions. He also knew why the other party was so confident. He cooperatively took out the myriad cauldron and said, "You should be talking about this. The 2 heaven realm experts are still inside and are still alive." "That's right, this is it." Looking at the simple pill cauldron, Yiliku's eyes burned with passion. Even his tone of voice changed. His breathing became rapid and his eyes were filled with greed. To be able to trap heaven realm experts, this thing is not weaker than heaven realm experts. It's a good thing, a good thing. It's definitely suitable for me. The moment he saw the pill cauldron, he sensed that it was not an ordinary item. The beautiful carvings made him intoxicated. The ancient and extraordinary aura also made him intoxicated. He made up his mind to take this pill cauldron. Moreover, he seemed to have an illusion that this thing was born to be his. Or rather, it was born to be prepared for him. With a second-level heavenly path technique and this cauldron that could trap people, Iliku believed that other than a few special existences, there were few who could be his match in the heaven realm. I've seen the item. It's very good. I'll send you on your way now. After confirming the extraordinariness of the cauldron, Iliku's expression changed. He completely turned hostile, his eyes cold. Second level, heavenly path technique. Black fiend wind slash. Without seeing Iliku's hands forming seals, a black hurricane appeared in front of him. After the hurricane appeared, it was like a wind blade that cut through space. Ilifu's expression was cold and murderous. One tornado immediately turned into two, two turned into four turned into 8, and 8 turned into 16. Just like this, the hurricane continued to grow at double the speed until it filled Iliku's surroundings. Looking at those tornadoes, Zi Chen's expression became slightly more solemn. He could feel that those tornadoes were not weak attacks. Moreover, as a heavenly Tao technique, these tornadoes with extraordinary attacks would not be so simple. In the next moment, the rotating hurricane turned into wind blades. They were like wind blades that continuously spun and tore through space. In the sky, space was torn apart, and the wind blades became the ruler. Iliku raised his head and glanced at Zichen. The corner of his mouth rose slightly, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. The wind blades changed again. From the previous method of expanding by several times, they merged by several times. Soon, the wind blades completely merged into one. Then, the wind blades merged again, becoming a wind attribute long blade. This was the true form of a rank 2 heavenly path technique. The aura that erupted from it was already enough to destroy the world. The wind blade only trembled slightly, and many wind blades scattered around it. At the same time, a powerful aura wreaked havoc in the world. Even Huping City in the distance could feel it. The city barrier formation that had not been removed began to tremble violently. Before it even attacked, there was already such a powerful aura. The expressions of the cultivators in the city changed drastically as they looked at Zichen with worry. Zichen felt a huge threat from the windblade. Zichen had already guessed that this was a high-rank heavenly path technique. He raised his eyebrows slightly and formed seals with both hands. Seeing Zichen form seals, a hint of surprise appeared on Iliku's face. According to the news, this newly ascended heaven stage cultivator did not know any heavenly path techniques. He sneered and said, "I didn't expect you to know any heavenly path techniques as well. However, a mere rank 1 heavenly path technique is useless in front of my rank 2 heavenly path technique. Die." The wind blade trembled in the sky, then slashed down from above. The space that had just healed was torn to shreds by the wind blades. The wind blade descended from the sky, filled with a destructive aura. Iliku looked at Zichen. The sinister smile on his face widened and turned into a hearty laugh. It was as if he could already see the scene of Zichen being cut down by the wind blade. Zichen raised his head and looked at the wind blade. His glowing fingers stopped moving and the seals were completed. A hint of coldness gradually appeared on his indifferent face. He growled, "Extreme Yang." A dazzling golden light appeared in front of Zichen. Then, an extreme Yang like a blazing sun rose from the sky and shot towards the wind blade. As the extreme Yang rose into the sky, it was as if another sun had appeared between heaven and earth. Blazing heat swept through the world. Iliku, who had a sinister smile on his face, looked at the blazing extreme Yang attack. His eyes slowly widened, and a hint of disbelief appeared on his face. As the extreme Yang rose into the sky, the blazing energy instantly crushed the wind blade that was emitting from the wind blade. The terrifying aura contained within the wind blade was actually forcefully suppressed. Boom! As the two of them clashed, the heavens trembled. After a few breaths of silence, the energies contained within the two heavens' path divine arts completely exploded. A two-colored ripple spread out in all directions like an exploding star. The energy swept out, and Iliku was the first to be sent flying. His face was still filled with shock. His rank 2 heavenly path technique was already enough to show disdain among the heaven stage cultivators. Only a few extremely special existences could suppress it. But today he was actually suppressed by a nameless brat in terms of heavenly path technique. As he was sent flying, his body was constantly suffering from the energy shock. He could no longer hold it in and coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. As he coughed out blood, a lot of vitality disappeared. This caused his face to be filled with horror. Zichin stood in air and looked at Iliku, who was sent flying and coughing out blood. He couldn't help but shake his head and sigh in his heart. Too weak. His figure flashed and directly charged towards Iliku. Under the cold expressions of the foreign races, the pseudo-heaven stage cultivator couldn't bear the pressure and stopped what he was saying. After respectfully bowing to the crowd, he hurriedly left. Iliku went to find that human. It was obvious that the next step was to obtain the cauldron treasure. Then, Iliku wouldn't even be afraid of heaven stage cultivators with heavenly soldiers. Although he didn't dare to say that he was standing at the peak of the heaven stage, at least he was at a height that they had to look up to. For a time, everyone stopped chatting. They weren't in the mood to fight. Occasionally, when they looked at each other, they could see regret and pity in each other's eyes. Compared to the foreign races who had their own thoughts, the heaven stage cultivators of Shantian Prefecture were still very anxious. They were anxious because they urgently wanted to determine one thing, and that was whether the person holding the cauldron was the Zichin who had entered the heaven stage. If it was really Zichin and the Zichin who had entered the heaven stage, then according to Zichen's previous achievements, Zichen could completely deal with the current situation of Shantian Prefecture. During this time, they would also raise their heads to look at the foreign races. When they saw the regretful expressions on their faces, they couldn't help but feel funny. If that person was really Zichen, not only would the arrogant Ilifu not be able to return, even they would not be able to make it back alive. In this kind of waiting, time passed very slowly. Finally, the pseudo-heavens figure appeared on the horizon again. His expression was very flustered. Sensing the pseudo-heavens aura, the heaven stage cultivators of Shantian Prefecture all perked up and released their spiritual senses. "Reporting to Lord!" Pseudo-heaven shouted from afar, but before he could finish, a dissatisfied voice sounded. "What's there to report? Isn't it just killing that heaven stage cultivator? Do you have to report such a small matter and show off?" Killing a heaven stage cultivator meant obtaining a treasure. Under such circumstances, he even specially reported it. In the eyes of the heaven stage cultivators, he was deliberately showing off. For a time, it also caused the disgust of many heaven stage cultivators. However, as a bystander, the heaven stage cultivators of Shantian Prefecture could see the panic and fear in the heaven stage cultivators' expressions. "Reporting to Lord Iliku has died in battle." As expected, the following report from pseudo-heaven confirmed the guess of the heaven stage cultivators of Shantian Prefecture. Chapter 1930. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was shocked. The foreign race's pseudo-heaven flew over, but the group of foreign race heavenly realm cultivators could not say a word. They, who were originally annoyed or depressed, now widened their eyes in a daze. What did you just say?" One of the foreign race heavenly realm cultivators reacted and immediately rushed over to the pseudo-heaven. He grabbed him and questioned him loudly. The pseudo-heaven's face was a little pale as he was grabbed tightly by the collar, and the heavenly realm's aura enveloped the surroundings. He felt suffocated, and his mouth moved, but he could not say a word. It was no wonder that this heavenly realm cultivator had such a big reaction. Among the foreign heaven realm experts who came this time, Ilifu, who grasped a rank 2 heaven realm technique, was one of the strongest in the group. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to provoke Wei Qin. After hearing that 2 Heaven Realm experts had been killed, he wouldn't have dared to provoke Wei Qin. Moreover, the others all looked very regretful. In their opinion, Yi Lifu, who was ranked at the top, would definitely win. However, the truth was that Yi Lifu was dead. The group of foreign race, Heavenly Realm cultivators could not accept this fact. Compared to the foreign race, Heavenly Realm cultivators, the Heavenly Realm cultivators of Shantian Prefecture were overjoyed after hearing this news. If they did not dare to conclude that the person who came was Ziqin, then when they heard the news of Yi Lifu's death, they were completely certain that the person who came was the famous Ziqin. It just so happened that Ziqin rose to prominence in Huping City. It could be said that Huping City was his home. These Heavenly Realm cultivators rashly entering Huping City was purely courting death. He said he's dead. There were simply too many legends about Ziqin. Even these Heaven Realm experts had heard quite a few of them. When they heard about Ziqin's battle achievements, they also felt great admiration in their hearts, especially in the current situation where Shantian Prefecture was clearly at a disadvantage. The return of Ziqin, who had entered the Heaven Realm, was simply a cardiac stimulant that was injected into everyone's hearts. Therefore, Wei Chen said this very naturally to the foreign race, Heavenly Realm cultivators in the distance. He said he was dead, which meant that the fake sky said Yi Lifu was dead. If you didn't hear it clearly, I can explain it for you. At the same time, the Shantian Mansion's Heaven Realm experts, who were usually extremely fearful when they saw the foreign Heaven Realm experts, all straightened their backs and regained their confidence. Their expressions became extremely cold. At this moment, the foreign Heavenly Realm expert had yet to recover from the shock of Yi Lifu's death. Naturally, he had no time to pay attention to the expressions of those who had lost to him. It was still the same Heavenly Realm expert who grabbed the false sky's collar and shouted, "Tell me what happened!" Pseudo-Heaven's body kept trembling. The alien Heavenly Realm gave him too much pressure. With a trembling voice, he said, "My lord, that human is very strange. His battle prowess is also extraordinary. The second stage technique that Lord Yi Lifu is so proud of was ineffective against him. With just one strike, Lord Yi Lifu coughed up blood after this false sky finished speaking. He was thrown to the ground by the Heavenly Realm expert and gasped for breath. The Heavenly Realm experts of Shantian Mansion also heard it. The meaning was very clear. Lord Yi Lifu, relying on the second stage technique, not only did he not kill anyone, but he was defeated in one move. Then he was easily injured and taken away by the cauldron. Damn it. The group of pseudo-Heavenly Realm experts' expressions were cold, and their eyes were filled with cold, killing intent. From the moment they invaded until now, it seemed that they had never suffered such a great loss. Now that they had lost 3 Heavenly Realm experts, this loss made them furious. Let's go and kill him. I want to see what kind of existence he is. A guy who just entered the Heavenly Realm can actually kill Yi Lifu. Let's go and meet him. The group of foreign race Heavenly Realm experts was very agitated and appeared to be very angry. On one hand, it was because of Yi Lifu's death. On the other hand, it was because the pseudo-Heavenly Realm expert mentioned the cauldron again. It was obvious that the cauldron that could trap Yi Lifu, even if it was not a heavenly weapon, was comparable to one. The group of foreign race Heavenly Realm experts was very excited. But this time, when they were thinking about Ziqin's cauldron, they were also weighing their own strength. Therefore, after the group's excitement, these foreign race Heavenly Realm experts no longer fought alone, but chose to go together. In any case, he broke the rules first. Even if we destroy that city, it's not too much. A Heavenly Realm expert actually destroyed our army of more than 100,000. He must be killed. Whether you can tolerate it or not, I can't. I'm going to kill him. If you want to go, let's go together. For our glory. That's right, for glory. We must kill that Heavenly Realm expert. On the foreign race's side, The Heavenly Realm experts shouted angrily. They were filled with righteous indignation, and their faces were filled with anger. In addition to their anger, these Heavenly Realm experts also deliberately looked at the 3 foreign race Heavenly Realm experts who had not spoken. These 3 people each had a heavenly weapon and were absolute experts. Although they had not fought here, there was no doubt about their strength. At this moment, they dared to speak so presumptuously because of these 3 people. The 3 of them were still silent, but their expressions were no longer as indifferent as before. After a moment, a Heavenly Realm expert said coldly, "Kill." This word affirmed the group of foreign race Heavenly Realm experts. The Heavenly Realm expert with a cold expression glanced at the Heavenly Realm experts from Shantian Prefecture in the distance and said indifferently, "Since it's already the last battle, it's the same no matter where it is. Kill that guy first, then deal with the others and march to other places." The group of foreign race Heavenly Realm experts nodded and flew in the direction of Huping City under the lead of the pseudo Heavenly Realm expert. The group of 27 Heavenly Realm experts quickly disappeared from everyone's sight. "Lord Wei, they're going to Huping City." When the Heavenly Realm experts from Shantian Prefecture saw this scene, they were also shocked. Wei Chen's gaze never left those people. After seeing them disappear, his expression turned cold and stern. He said indifferently, "If that person is really Zi Qin, then Zi Qin, who has entered the Heavenly Realm, is naturally not to be underestimated. Zi Qin may not be able to stop them by himself, but as long as we all go, with Zi Chen's cooperation, they won't be able to gain the slightest advantage." Wei Chen smiled coldly and said, "Since they intend to fight in Huping City, then let's see who's stronger and who's weaker." After saying that, Wei Chen's gaze swept around and said, "Everyone, follow me to Huping City. Since the foreign race intends to hold the last battle there, then we'll have a battle to the death there. These Heavenly Realm experts would have to fight sooner or later. Now that Zi Chan had appeared, they might still have a chance of winning." Naturally, no one had any objections and immediately followed Wei Chen's footsteps to Huping City. During this time, the foreign race experts sensed that the Heavenly Realm experts from Shantian Prefecture had caught up, but they did not do anything else. As mentioned earlier, the final battle would be held in Huping City. Huping City. All the cultivators in the city had personally witnessed the scene of Zi Qin killing Li Fu. The expert, who had been brimming with confidence, had been injured by Zi Qin in just 2 moves. Li Fu's arrogant expression was replaced by one of shock due to his severe injuries. Immediately after, Zi Chen charged up and knocked him down with great ease before storing him into the cauldron of creation. As the entire city cheered, Zi Chen did not return to Huping City. He continued to stand in the sky above the city. Below, the city guarding formation that belonged to Huping City was still in place. The twins had no intention of removing it. Not long after, the energy in the horizon began to pulse violently. Zi Chan raised his head to look at the distant horizon. From the pulse of energy, he could sense that there were quite a few Heavenly Realm experts. "They're finally here." The corners of Zi Chen's mouth curled into a smile. His gaze turned cold. Through the pulse of energy, he could sense that a large group of Heavenly Realm experts had arrived. For so many Heavenly Realm experts to appear, it was clear that all the foreign race experts who had invaded Shantian Prefecture had flown over. In his line of sight, the figures of the foreign race experts appeared. There were indeed quite a few of them, more than 20 of them. This was also Zi Chen's plan. He would deal with them all at once. As far as he could see, there were as many as 24 Heavenly Realm experts, and they were charging over aggressively. His gaze flashed, and the coldness in Zi Chen's eyes intensified. Following the appearance of the 24 foreign race experts, Zi Chen once again sensed the aura of the Heavenly Realm experts. However, this time, Zi Chen sensed kindness through the aura of the Heavenly Realm experts. Clearly, This was the aura of the Heavenly Realm experts from the same camp. They were afraid that Zi-chan would misunderstand, so they revealed their identities in advance. The 24 foreign race experts and 23 Heavenly Realm experts from Shuntian Prefecture all arrived at the periphery of Huping City and saw Zi-chan standing in the air. Seeing such a young figure, the group of foreign race experts also stopped. Their expressions were filled with shock and doubt. Similarly, seeing Zi-chan for the first time, the Heavenly Realm experts from Shuntian Prefecture also carefully sized up Zi-chan. Everyone, since you're here, don't even think about leaving. The place fell silent for a moment, and Zi-chan was the first to break the silence. You're courting death. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Do you really think that you're invincible after killing Yi Lifu? Hearing Zi-chan's provocative words, the anger in the hearts of the foreign race's Heaven Realm experts was completely ignited. Powerful auras surged around their bodies. What should we do? Seeing that the foreign race experts in front were about to attack, a Heavenly Realm expert from Shuntian Prefecture asked Wei Qin from behind. Wei Qin frowned slightly. Speaking of which, under such circumstances, it seemed that they needed to inform Zi-chan and see how they should fight this battle. They needed to know clearly how many foreign race experts Zi-chan could deal with, or rather, how many foreign race experts he could restrain. However, just as Wei Qin was thinking about how to carry out this final battle, Zi-chan, who was in front of him, suddenly emitted a cold, murderous intent. Since you're here, then die. As the words filled with killing intent rang out, Zi-chan took a step forward. The ball of light that emitted the tricolored energy of thunder and fire suddenly appeared in his sight and then flew forward. The tricolored light of thunder and fire was extremely fast, like lightning. Before the foreign race experts could react, it pierced through their bodies. Chapter 1931. After seeing Zi-chan, this legendary existence, Wei Qin had a rough idea of what to do next. He was thinking about how to fight the next battle and what method he should use to fight. In Wei Qin's opinion, this was a test of combat strength and intelligence. He needed to plan it well and discuss it with Zi-chan. While Wei Qin was thinking, Zi-chan had already made his move. It was fine if he did make a move, but when he did, it was as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, the 24 alien Heavenly Realm Masters who didn't have heavenly weapons lost all signs of life. As for the 3 Heavenly Realm Masters with heavenly weapons, they also appeared from their concealed states. The world instantly fell silent. Not even the slightest sound could be heard. The group of Heavenly Realm Masters from Shuntian Prefecture stared blankly at Zi-chan, unable to say a word. As for Wei Qin, who was still thinking when he saw this scene, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. All 24 Heavenly Realm Masters were dead. This wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that Zi-chan had only used the heavenly weapon once. What kind of combat strength was that to be able to kill 24 alien Heavenly Realm Masters with just one attack? Wei Qin, who also had a heavenly weapon, didn't think that he had the strength to reach Zi-chan's level. In the distance, the cultivators in Huping City had already seen this scene through the light shield. Their expressions were full of shock and horror. They knew that Zi-chan was very strong, but they hadn't expected him to be so strong that he could kill 24 Heavenly Realm Masters in one strike. The fake Heavenly Realm Master hiding in the distance was so scared that he almost wet himself when he saw the 24 corpses falling from the sky. How is this possible? How is this possible? He repeated the same sentence incoherently, his body trembling uncontrollably. The scene of 24 Heaven Realm experts being killed in one strike was something they had never heard of or seen before. The 24 Heavenly Realm Masters' corpses didn't fall to the ground. The pill cauldron that appeared immediately sucked them all in. In the 9th continent, where resources were scarce, it was extremely difficult to find a heaven-grade material to refine a heavenly armament. As a heaven realm expert of a foreign race, they themselves were the best materials. so Zichen naturally wouldn't waste them. The powerful team of Heavenly Realm experts was reduced to 3 people in an instant. Although they were the strongest 3, they didn't have the slightest bit of confidence when facing Zichen. Their expressions were indifferent, but they were cursing in their hearts. That damned fake heaven had actually spread such news. Based on the description, the news was clearly very serious. Not only was this person's battle prowess terrifying, it was so terrifying that it could even rival those powerful existences. However, it was clear that not only did the young man possess a powerful Heaven's Path technique, he also had a celestial artifact with him. His fighting prowess had reached the pinnacle of the Heaven Realm. Even if it was 3 against 1, they didn't have the slightest bit of confidence. A wave of killing intent spread out and locked onto the 3 alien Heavenly Realm experts, making it impossible for them to escape. Swoosh! Zichen's eyes flashed coldly, and the tricolored light appeared again. It streaked across the sky in a semicircle towards the 3 outsiders. Clang! 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 A crisp sound resounded in the world. The sky blade turned into a tricolored light and returned to Zichen's side, turning into a jumping little fairy. The 3 alien Heavenly Realm experts had all retreated 100 meters. Their faces were a little pale, and they gripped the sky blade in their hands tightly as they looked at Zichen solemnly. It was still the same move. Zichen could instantly kill 24 Heavenly Realm experts, but he couldn't kill 3 existences with celestial artifacts. Of course, it wasn't that the thunderous saber wasn't strong enough, but that Zichen's comprehension hadn't reached that level yet. The 3 looked at each other and saw a hint of fierceness in each other's eyes. They had also sensed Zichen's means from the previous attack and felt that they still had a chance to fight. Slash! As the cold voice sounded, the Heavenly Realm expert with the sky blade slashed at Zichen. The rainbow sword chi tore through the void and arrived before Zichen in the blink of an eye. Huh! With a loud shout, Zichen clenched his fists, and dazzling golden energy surged out of his fists. Pum! The sword chi tore through the energy, and Zichen flew backward. As he flew backward, a trace of blood flowed from the corner of Zichen's mouth. He still didn't have the means to fight a celestial artifact empty-handed. As they flew backward, the 3 Heavenly Realm experts couldn't help but narrow their eyes as they looked at Zichen. He was able to block the attack of a celestial artifact with his physical body, and only blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Such means were terrifying. In the distance, the Heavenly Realm experts from Shuntian Prefecture were also stunned. Lord Wei, should we make a move? One of the Heavenly Realm experts asked hesitantly. Zichen's previous attack had shocked Wei Qin. At this moment, Wei Qin couldn't make up his mind. You don't have to make a move. Just as everyone was hesitating, Zichen's voice suddenly sounded in their minds. His words were filled with decisiveness and confidence. In the sky, Zichen had already made his move. The thunderous saber decisively attacked. Clang! One of the Heavenly Realm experts dodged the saber spirit's attack and suddenly retreated. In the distance, Zichen's figure suddenly disappeared into thin air. The 2 Heavenly Realm experts lost their target and couldn't help but be stunned. However, the expression of the Heaven Realm expert, who was retreating, suddenly changed drastically. He turned around in the air and slashed fiercely behind him. Swoosh! A powerful blow tore through the void. In the void, Zichen's figure flashed and disappeared. So fast! A look of surprise flashed across the Heavenly Realm expert's face. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, Zichen had silently appeared behind him. A powerful energy came out of his body and heavily blasted the Heavenly Realm expert. Puff! The Heavenly Realm expert coughed up blood, and his body flew straight forward. Swoosh! Swoosh! At the same time, the other 2 Heavenly Realm experts saw that the situation was not good. They immediately rushed forward and slashed down with the heavenly weapons in their hands. On one hand, They wanted to stop Ziqin and prevent him from rushing forward. On the other hand, they wanted to save the Heavenly Realm expert. The two of them cooperated very well. Ziqin, who was rushing forward, blocked them with energy. He had no choice but to resist the two forces of energy first. Seeing Ziqin suddenly stop, the Heavenly Realm expert also had a ferocious smile on his face. The smile on the Heaven Realm cultivator's face froze when he thought he had escaped danger. A huge cauldron burning with flames tore through the air with a bang. It charged towards the Heaven Realm cultivator with more than a dozen fire dragons. "Get lost!" The Heavenly Realm expert's expression suddenly turned cold. After a furious roar, he suddenly flipped the heavenly weapon in his hand and slashed at the fire dragons. The fire dragons were broken, but the broken ones instantly reassembled. With a loud dragon roar, they entangled the Heavenly Realm expert and the heavenly weapon. No, the Heavenly Realm expert's expression immediately became fearful. As the energy around him surged, he found that he could not shake off the fire dragons. His expression changed drastically and fear appeared on his face. In the next moment, the cauldron enveloped him, and a terrifying voice came out of the Heavenly Realm expert's mouth. Boom! The cauldron shook, and the fire dragons and the Heavenly Realm expert were all sucked into it. The Heavenly Realm expert's mournful voice still echoed in the world, but there was no trace of him. One of the three Heavenly Realm experts had died. When the other two Heavenly Realm experts saw this scene, their expressions changed drastically. Ziqin's decisiveness made them very wary. However, they did not run away. Instead, they joined forces and surrounded Ziqin. Swoosh! Swoosh! In a situation where they displayed extreme speed, two sharp attacks brushed past Ziqin's body. After dodging the attacks, Ziqin formed a seal with both hands. Soon, the extreme yang seal appeared, forming a blazing energy that shot toward one of the Heavenly Realm experts. In the Heavenly Realm expert's hand, the heavenly weapon slashed down. Boom! The terrifying energy vibrated, and Ziqin's powerful extreme yang attack shattered. The heavenly soldier's powerful attack also dissipated. Swoosh! However, a tricolored light of thunder and fire suddenly pierced through the violent energy and arrived in front of the Heavenly Realm expert, piercing through his forehead. With his forehead pierced, the Heavenly Realm expert's body trembled. Then all the energy in his body was instantly drained, and his vitality dissipated. Damn it, how could this be? Feeling the instant loss of his companion's vitality, a look of horror flashed across the face of the last Heavenly Realm expert. Usually, a battle between Heavenly Realm experts would not be quickly decided. It would usually take a few rounds before the gap between the two sides could be felt. Situations like this, where victory and defeat was decided in a single blow and life or death, were extremely rare. And such existences were undoubtedly at the peak of the Heavenly Realm. They had prominent reputations. Therefore, the Heavenly Realm expert did not say anything and turned to run. Ziqin smiled coldly and chased after him. Among the same level, who could be faster than Ziqin's extreme speed under the heavens? As the two figures disappeared into the sky, one after the other, the Heavenly Realm experts of Shantian Prefecture were still in a daze. How is this possible? They looked around and saw disbelief in each other's eyes. In their eyes, the Heavenly Realm experts that were difficult to deal with were actually killed by Ziqin in an instant. And among the three strongest Heavenly Realm experts, one died, one entered the cauldron, and one escaped. Even if their group of 23 Heavenly Realm experts worked together, they would not be able to achieve such a result. However, Ziqin accomplished such an incredible feat by himself. He's too strong. After a long time, one of the Heavenly Realm experts exclaimed, his face full of shock. He's not just strong, he's ridiculously strong. The other Heavenly Realm experts beside him were also amazed. The absolute combat strength Zichen displayed today had completely shocked them. In addition to being shocked, everyone was also quite excited. This was because, in this way, there were no other Heavenly Realm experts in Shantian Prefecture. Not only were they safe, but all the cultivators who survived in Shantian Prefecture were also safe. Not long after, a figure appeared in the sky. It was Zichen. Chapter 1932. Zichen had returned. As for the life and death of that Heaven Realm expert, no one cared. Wei Qin and the others flew towards Zichen with excited expressions. Lord Zichen. When they arrived, everyone respectfully greeted him. With the combat strength that Zichen had displayed today, it was enough for him to be addressed as Lord in front of a group of Heaven Realm experts. With his own strength, he had killed 27 Heaven Realm experts in a day. Even compared to his previous achievements, Zichen's ranking was extremely high. Huping City was already filled with cheers. All the cultivators in the city were in an uproar. Zichen had killed so many Heaven Realm experts in one fell swoop. Huping City was undoubtedly safe now. How's the situation? Wei Chen's position was undoubtedly closer to the front as everyone moved forward. Therefore, Zichen glanced at Wei Chen and asked, "Currently, there are only these Heaven Realm experts in Shantian Prefecture. They've all been killed by Lord. We're safe now," Wei Chen said while suppressing the excitement in his heart. "Oh, there are only so many Heaven Realm experts." Zichen seemed a little surprised. Looking at Zichen's expression, a hint of shame flashed across Wei Chen's face as he said, "The reason there are few Heaven Realm experts in foreign tribes is actually because there aren't many Heaven Realm experts on our side. Many Heaven Realm experts came during this period and have already moved to other regions." Zichen nodded and then asked, "Are there any other forces that still exist?" Obviously, Wei Chen alone could not answer this question. Then, Wei Chen discussed with a group of Heaven Realm experts, and a few more Heaven Realm experts left. A moment later, everyone had an answer. Wei Chen came to Zichen and said, "Lord, currently in Shantian Prefecture, other than Huping City, only Tiger Mountain has not been broken through by the foreign tribes. After the destruction of the cities, the cultivators in the 108 cities of Shantian Prefecture all gathered in Huping City. As for the other high-level life forms that had left the cities, except for some who entered the forest to avoid the disaster, the rest saw that the situation was not good and went to Tiger Mountain first. Everyone was there to resist the foreign tribes." Hearing Wei Chen's words, Zichen pondered for a moment before saying, "In that case, some of you go and guard Tiger Mountain. As for the others, spread out and look for other survivors." Hearing this, Wei Chen hesitated. Zichen looked at him and asked, "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" After a moment of hesitation, Wei Chen said, "There are no Heaven Realm experts among the aliens at Tiger God Mountain. If we act rashly, will we break the rules?" When Zichen heard this, he was so angry that he laughed. "They've come all the way here, and you're still talking about rules? Bullshit rules. Go kill them all. Exterminate every outsider you see." Yes, the Heaven Realm experts nodded and prepared to leave. However, at this moment, Zichen's expression changed slightly. A cold smile appeared on his face. "You want to leave? Do you think that's possible?" Suddenly, a golden light shot out. As the golden light moved forward, it directly shattered the void. In the shattered void, a human figure appeared. The human figure was trapped by the golden energy. Everyone's expression changed when they saw the figure exuding the Heaven Realm aura. This person's expression was cold as he glared at Zichen, his eyes full of hatred. The void shook, and the alchemy cauldron descended from the sky. Fire dragons wrapped around the figure and forcefully pulled his body into the alchemy cauldron. The moment he entered, everyone saw that the figure suddenly turned into a sword, a heavenly sword. It was the heavenly soldier that had just died. Heavenly soldiers had their own thoughts. It was impossible for them to give up on themselves because of the death of their master. However, They definitely did not have a good impression of the existence that killed their master. Qin took away the heavenly soldier. For the time being, he did not want to subdue the other party. He first threw it into the alchemy cauldron to refine it. Throughout history, it was common for celestial soldiers to be tamed. However, there were also some existences with very strong personalities who would rather die than be tamed. For such existences, the only way to deal with them was to refine the soldier spirit and forge a new one. Seeing that Qin had so easily taken away a heavenly soldier, and thinking about how there might be 2 more heavenly soldiers in Qin's alchemy cauldron, some of the heavenly realms could not help but reveal envious expressions. All these years, they had not obtained a single heavenly soldier. However, Qin had obtained 3 in just one day. More importantly, Qin already had a heavenly soldier. Heavenly soldiers were almost the same as heavenly Tao spells. Having one was enough. Having too many was almost useless. For a moment, everyone had other thoughts in their minds. Qin pretended not to see the strange expressions on everyone's faces. He was not so generous as to give away a heavenly soldier after just one meeting. Seeing that Qin did not say anything, these heavenly realms could only leave. Although they felt regret in their hearts, they could understand. Therefore, these heavenly realms were sent out by Qin before they even entered the city. There were a total of 23 heavenly realms. In the Shentian prefecture, where there were no heavenly realms from foreign tribes, they could settle everything. Qin returned to Huping City and entered Hunter's castle amidst the cheers of all the cultivators in the city. During this time, everyone suggested that Qin stay in the city lord's manor, but Qin rejected them. In Qin's heart, the city lord of Huping City would always be Mu Feng, who had died in battle. The danger had been eliminated. After receiving Qin's instructions, the cultivators in Huping City all left the city and used various signals to contact their own people. In the entire Shentian prefecture, Huping City would be their only base of operations. With the heavenly realms taking action, the foreign tribes naturally suffered heavy losses this time. Some of the foreign tribes who were lucky enough to escape fled in the direction of the Imperial Sky region. Without a new heavenly realm to hold the fort, these foreign tribes would simply be courting death if they continued to stay in the Shentian prefecture. Many cultivators came to Huping City because of this summons. Many experts also came to Tiger God Mountain, which was already safe. They specially came to thank Qin. Among them was Wu Shuang, whom Qin was very familiar with. Back when the two of them had fought side by side, they had only been at the domain realm. Now things had changed. The foreign tribes had invaded and become the enemy of the entire Zhanwu continent. Qin had guessed that the foreign tribes would definitely send new heavenly realms over after suffering heavy losses this time. However, contrary to Qin's expectations, no new heavenly realms from foreign tribes had arrived even after several months had passed. Apart from that, almost all the foreign tribes in this region had also evacuated. It was as if the Shentian prefecture had been abandoned by the foreign tribes. After receiving this news, the cultivators in Huping City were very excited. However, this excitement did not last for long. It was as if a basin of cold water had been poured on the fire in their hearts. This was because Qin was about to leave. "You're leaving?" Shang Guanhong, who was the first to receive the news, looked at Qin in disbelief. In such a chaotic world, the most important thing should be to protect one's life. After hearing that there was no more foreign tribes in Shentian Prefecture, many forces had come to Shentian Prefecture. During this time, she had not seen anyone take the initiative to leave. "I have to leave." Qin did not explain the reason, but his firm tone had already expressed his attitude. He was different from others. As a heaven-defying person, it was his responsibility and mission to take the initiative to challenge the foreign tribes. Others could shrink back, but he could not. Qin's firm determination to leave made the cultivators of Huping City very disappointed. When the Shentian Dao and the fortune teller heard the news, They expressed that they wanted to go with Zichen. Zichen shook his head and refused. This was because the upcoming battle would definitely be a battle between heavenly realms. The two of them had yet to enter the heavenly realm, so it would be very dangerous for them to follow Zichen. Sir Zichen, I'll go with you. Wei Qin was the first to find Zichen, saying that he wanted to go with Zichen. Wei Chen was not only in the heavenly realm, but he also had a heavenly soldier with him. His combat strength was extraordinary, so Zichen decided to bring him along. In addition, for other heavenly realms decided to go with Zichen. The remaining heavenly realms said that they would stay in Huping City and protect the safety of the people there. Although they said they would protect him, Zichen knew that these people had chosen to shrink back. In the past, the heavenly realm was an existence revered by everyone. It was a realm that everyone yearned for. Once one entered the heavenly realm, they would definitely become famous in the war martial continent. However, now that the foreign tribes had invaded and the rules of the world had changed, the heavenly realm was no longer so rare and could die at any time. In the face of such a situation where they could die at any time, they chose to shrink back. The result of shrinking back was that they would no longer have the will to fight and would never have a chance to enter the Saint Realm. Zichen respected everyone's choice and left with the 5 of them. On this day, all the cultivators in the city came out of the city to see them off. In the Zichen Pavilion, the wonderful legend of Zichen added another thick stroke. Zichen's next target was the Imperial Sky region. Next, he would fight his way through prefecture by prefecture and region by region. In the end, he would cross one continent after another and complete his destiny as a heaven-defying person. When he arrived at the Imperial Sky region, a great battle broke out between the heavenly realms. Zichen killed 38 heavenly realms by himself and obtained 6 heavenly soldiers. After that, Zichen went to the other 6 prefectures and killed a group of foreign tribes. By the time Zichen left the Imperial Sky region, more than a year had passed. The 5 heavenly realms following him had expanded to 20. After that, Zichen gave the 2 heavenly soldiers that he had tamed to 2 of his followers for free. In just a month, the number of followers beside Zichen had increased to 40. After the Imperial Sky region was the Azure Sky region. The destruction caused by the heavenly realms was unimaginable. The Azure Sky region, the Azure Sky region, the Sky Shaking region, the Sky Willow region, and the rest of the 7 major regions. Zichen led his people to all of them and killed hundreds of foreign tribes. Zichen's name spread across the 9th mainland once again. Unlike before, Zichen's deeds shocked even the heavenly realms. Zichen went straight from the 9th mainland to the 8th mainland. The number of heavenly realms following behind him also exceeded 100. This was an extremely powerful team of heavenly realms, to the point where they could kill anyone in their way. During this time, the foreign tribes of the 9th mainland also moved to the 8th mainland. This place became a new battlefield. After the 8th mainland was the 7th mainland. Zichen's name became more and more prominent, and the number of heavenly realms following him also increased. The more enemies he killed, the more followers he gained. Zichen's reputation also grew. Chapter 1933. Heaven Defiers were independent existences that were unique in every world. Such existences possessed terrifying destructive power that could extinguish all life in the world. The so-called undying energy and indestructible existences were nothing but a joke in front of Heaven Defiers. Heaven Defiers had an absolute advantage among those of the same level. At some point, news of Heaven Defiers began to spread. On the 7th mainland, the Heavenly Realm experts who followed Zichen looked at Zichen with complicated expressions. Zichen had always been very strong, and he could even kill some ordinary Heaven Realm cultivators. As the news of the heaven-defying realm spread, many people subconsciously thought of Zichen. Could Lord Zichen be a Heaven Defier? It's said that Heaven Defiers are one of a kind. Although Lord Zichen is strong, he shouldn't be a Heaven Defier. I think Lord Zi-Chin might be a heavenly fire. Think about it. He can instantly kill those of the same level and kill hundreds of heavenly realm experts. Who else but a heavenly fire could have such strength? What exactly is a heavenly fire? Could it be an existence that defies the heavens? Could there really be heavens in this world? These heavenly realm experts had followed Zi-Chin and seen Zi-Chan in action. Every time they thought about it, they were shocked. Ordinary heavenly realm experts of other races were nothing more than targets for Zi-Chen to slaughter. Even if hundreds of heavenly realm experts attacked together, they might not be able to kill Zi-Chen or defeat Zi-Chen alone. It could be said that Zi-Chen was not only the soul of this vast group of heavenly realm experts, but he was also a powerful existence comparable to hundreds of heavenly realm experts. Some of the heavenly realm experts in the group chose to follow Zi-Chin, aside from a few who wanted to kill other races for revenge. Most of them did so because of Zi-Chen's ever-increasing number of heavenly soldiers. Everyone knew that the heavenly soldiers that Zi-Chen gave out did not need to be tamed. They could be refined and used after refinement. Over the past few years, the team had continued to expand. Of the people who had followed Zi-Chin in the beginning, only Wei-Chin was left. His role in the team was not like that of a warrior, but more like that of a butler. Every time Zi-Chen gave out a heavenly soldier, the new owner of the heavenly soldier would leave the group and disappear into the horizon under the envious gazes of the other heavenly realm experts. These people claimed that they were looking for a place to refine the heavenly soldiers, but in reality they had already achieved their goal. It was too risky to stay here and fight with other heavenly realm experts. The losses outweighed gains. After all, many heavenly realm experts who followed Zi-Chen's heavenly realm experts had died in the past few years. During this period, there were also some interludes. There were other heaven realm experts who had left the group and followed the existence with the heavenly soldiers, secretly attacking them. Heavenly realm experts who were killed, heavenly realm experts, killed mercilessly, heavenly realm experts, heavenly realm experts under the invasion of other races. Zi-Chen refused to engage in any internal strife. After the people in the group learned of his attitude, they gradually dispelled the idea of killing the heavenly soldiers. On a piece of flat land, the team was reorganized. Zi-Chen stood on a mound and gazed into the distance. He had already traveled to 3 continents and seen countless tragic scenes. His heart would always be moved by the actions of the other races. There were still 6 continents to go, and Zi-Chen was not sure what he would see next. Footsteps rang out behind him as Wei-Chin arrived in front of Zi-Chen and respectfully said, "Lord Zi-Chen, 2 more people in the group have met the requirements." These followers had followed Zi-Chen for the heavenly soldiers, and Zi-Chen was not stingy with the heavenly soldiers. However, he could not give away a supreme treasure like the heavenly soldiers for free, so he had set up a series of requirements. The simplest of these requirements was to follow Zi-Chen for 100 years. As long as they were still alive, regardless of whether they contributed or not, they would be given a heavenly soldier. In addition, there were also some requirements that would be based on the number of heavenly realm experts they killed to see if they met the requirements. Wei-Chen's role was to gather statistics. He almost never participated in battles, so he was the steward of the group. Just as Wei-Chen arrived at Zi-Chen's side, the heavenly realm experts in the distance all looked over with complicated expressions. Among them, the 2 heavenly realm experts were the most nervous and uneasy. At the same time that the news about the heavenly fire spread, another piece of news appeared. This piece of news cast a shadow over everyone's hearts. The news vaguely mentioned that the other races had invaded to find the heavenly fire. It seemed that the other races had only come for the heavenly fire. No one knew if this news was true or false. It was just a rumor. As for whether Zi-Chen was a heavenly fire or not, it was still to be determined. However, the possibility of Zi-Chen being a heavenly fire was very high, so much so that everyone's thoughts had changed recently. If the other races had really come for the Heaven Fire, and Zichen happened to be that Heaven Fire, then following Zichen would undoubtedly be equivalent to becoming an enemy of the entire alien race. If the rumors were true, then the Heavenly Realm experts would have to consider whether it was worth following Zichen. Under such circumstances, those who had gathered enough contribution points and met the requirements to obtain a heavenly soldier would not have to worry about this problem. Naturally, they were very lucky. Everyone looked at Zichen. At the same time, they wondered if Zichen, who might be a Heaven Fire, would still distribute heavenly soldiers like before. Everyone's thoughts were very strange, even though they did not know what a Heaven Fire was. Oh. Retracting his thoughts, Zichen looked at Wei Qin and responded faintly. He raised his hand and took out 2 heavenly soldiers and threw them at Wei Qin. Zichen's expression was very relaxed, as if he had just thrown out 2 ordinary things and not 2 heavenly soldier treasures. His carefree calmness made the other Heavenly Realm experts feel ashamed of their inferiority. The 2 heavenly soldiers were a saber and a sword. They appeared in human form in the sky. The 2 bowed respectfully to Zichen, then turned into a saber and a sword and fell into Wei Chen's hands. Everyone had seen such a scene many times, but every time they saw the celestial soldiers' respectful appearance, their expressions would change. Even the heavenly soldiers were very respectful to Zichen. It was clear that Zichen's methods were brilliant. Wei Chen took the saber and sword, bowed to Zichen again, then turned and walked back. The 2 Heavenly Realm experts who had met the requirements had already stood up impatiently and walked toward Wei Chen. After taking the heavenly soldiers from Wei Chen, the 2 thanked him repeatedly. Then, under the gazes of the Heavenly Realm experts, they flew into the distance. Some Heavenly Realm experts curled their lips in disdain when they saw the scene. The 2 who flew out turned back halfway and came to Zichen. They bowed respectfully to Zichen to express their gratitude. Lord Zichen, we will rush over as soon as we finish refining the heavenly soldiers, the 2 said solemnly. The 2 of them swore solemnly. Their tone was so similar to those who had left earlier. However, after so long, no one had returned with the heavenly soldiers. Zichen looked at the 2, smiled faintly, and said, "Be careful on the road." Yes. The 2 nodded, then turned into flowing lights and flew away. The team had lost 2 people again. The others were still quite a distance away from meeting the requirements. In addition, there were no battles to participate in recently. Many people were quite anxious. Wei Chen looked away from the Heavenly Realm experts and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. In the entire team, there were more than 100 Heavenly Realm experts. Other than him, there were less than 10 who had heavenly soldiers and wanted to kill the foreign races. The rest didn't have heavenly soldiers and didn't know heavenly Dao techniques. Their only hope of joining was to obtain a heavenly soldier from Zichen. Because of the rumors about the heaven-defying cultivators, they felt that the difficulty of obtaining a heavenly soldier had increased. Their hopes had dimmed, so they had more worries in their hearts. Wei Qin came before Zichen again and said respectfully, "My lord, what should we do next?" "Continue forward," said Zichen. After hesitating for a moment, Wei Chen purposely suggested, "Some people in the team aren't in high spirits. Should we slow down a little? Moreover, we haven't encountered the foreign races in a long time. Perhaps they have already left, or perhaps they have already set up an encirclement and are waiting for us." Zichen glanced at Wei Qin. He was the first to follow Zichen, and his goal was to kill the foreign races. He didn't have any extravagant hopes in his heart. Smiling, Zichen said, "It's fine. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. As for the emotional problem, it will slowly get better after participating in a few more battles." Seeing that Zichen was still so confident, Wei Qin nodded and didn't say anything else. "Let's continue." Zichen stood up and looked into the distance. His indifferent voice spread out. Hearing this, everyone subconsciously stood up and followed Zichen forward. However, among them, there were 6 Heavenly Realm experts who had joined last. Their expressions were rather hesitant, standing in place, without moving. They looked at the team that was getting farther and farther away. Their expressions became firm, and they turned around and walked back. They were the first batch of Heavenly Realm experts to leave after hearing the rumors about the heaven-defying cultivators. They didn't want to kill the enemy, but to obtain the heavenly weapons. However, there were too many people in Zichen's team. It was impossible for them to do so in a short time. The moment the 6 people turned around, the others sensed it. Except for a few who were slightly hesitant, the others firmly chose to follow Zichen. After walking for about 100 miles, they finally encountered the Heavenly Realm experts of the foreign races. However, unlike what everyone had expected, the Heavenly Realm experts of the foreign races weren't in a group, but one. A young man with a cold expression who was also dressed in black, like Zichen, stood quietly in front of them, blocking everyone's path. In front of them, Zichen stopped. The young man stood there without moving, but he gave him a dangerous feeling. The others also stopped and released their spiritual senses. They used all kinds of methods to check if there was anything unusual around them. The answer was no. There was only one alien here, and that was the other party. No one could imagine where this person got the courage to fight against more than 100 Heavenly Realm experts by himself. Did he think that he was Zichen? In front of the crowd, 2 Heavenly Realm experts behind Zichen looked at each other. They saw the cold light in each other's eyes. The 2 of them nodded and charged toward the outsider. They were in such a hurry because their contribution points were not far away from obtaining a heavenly weapon. Opposite them, the alien looked at the 2 people who were moving forward. He didn't move, and his expression was very calm. Zichen suddenly had a bad feeling, and he wanted to stop the 2 of them. But it was too late. 2 wind blades flew out from beside the alien. Puff! Puff! The wind blades swept past, and 2 heads flew into the air. 2 Heavenly Realm experts died. P.S. The internet is still disconnected at home. Because of the need to connect the optical fiber, there has been a problem with the broadband. We called many times to ask for repair, but the other party said that it was fixed. This situation might continue for a while. Recently, the chapters were either sent to the internet cafes or friends' houses. However, they left after sending the chapters. They didn't log into QQ. Chapter 1934. 2 heads flew high into the air. Their cold expressions froze, and their lives disappeared in an instant. The headless corpses continued flying forward. Blood gushed out, and the scene was incredibly bizarre. After the headless corpses flew dozens of meters away, they fell heavily to the ground. The young man's expression did not change at all after he killed 2 Heaven Realm experts. He calmly stared at Zichen in front of him. If he could easily kill a Heaven Realm expert, then he was clearly not an ordinary person. Zichen's pupils could not help but shrink. Cries of surprise rang out behind him. This was the first time they faced an enemy who could instantly kill a Heaven Realm expert. A commotion broke out in the crowd, and fear appeared on many Heaven Realm experts' faces. Trash! The young man swept his gaze over the slightly panicked Heaven Realm experts, and a hint of disdain flashed in his eyes. When his gaze landed on Zichen, it became slightly more solemn. Whoosh! A wind blade, even more terrifying than the one before, appeared in front of the young man and flew towards Zichen. He said the word "trash" to the crowd, then looked at Zichen and attacked without saying anything. When he sensed the energy contained in the wind blade, Zichen's expression clearly changed. He clenched his fists and threw a punch. Golden light shone in the air. Boom! The fist light shattered the powerful wind blade, and the terrifying energy reverberated and wreaked havoc between the 2 of them. They stood in place, and no matter how their robes flapped, they did not move at all. As for the Heaven Realm experts around Zichen, they had long since been swept away by the energy and retreated. As he stared at the young man in front of him, Zichen's expression changed. The fluctuations in his expression were very intense, because he sensed a familiar aura from the wind blade. This aura was also present on his body, which was why Chen was able to sense it. It was the aura of a heaven-defying being. In other words, the young man was a heaven-defying being, just like him. But wasn't there only one heaven-defying being? Chen was puzzled, but his senses were definitely not wrong. He was certain that the young man was a heaven-defying being. A cold smile suddenly appeared at the corner of the young man's mouth. He looked at Chen and said coldly, "To be able to block one of my attacks, even if you're not a heaven-defying expert, you're still amazing. So you're saying that you're a defiant of the heavens." Chen's expression returned to normal as he spoke coldly. The young man said coldly, "If you're still alive, you have the right to know." Listening to the simple conversation between the two, the people in the heaven realm were a little confused. If this person was a heaven-defying cultivator, then was Chen a heaven-defying cultivator? The outsiders had invaded to search for heaven-defying cultivators. Could it be that they were looking for this young man? Just as everyone was puzzled, they saw the young man in front of them move. Light flashed around him as he rushed towards Chen. As he rushed forward, wind blades appeared in the sky. These wind blades arrived in front of the young man and quickly formed a huge wind blade, which slashed towards Chen. Swoosh! Feeling this powerful blade, light flashed under Chen's feet. There was a slight pause in the air. Chen used this pause to dodge the young man's attack. The wind blades downward stopped. As the young man's hand shook, the wind blade slashed horizontally towards Chen. Swoosh! Swoosh! Chen quickly dodging the wind blade's attack again. This was the first time that everyone saw Chen dodge since the beginning of the battle. Their faces were filled with astonishment. At the same time, they looked at the young man with eyes full of shock. The two of them turned into two streams of light, constantly entangling in the sky. During this process, Chen kept retreating. However, as Chen retreated, the shock on his face grew stronger and stronger. This was because he was 100% sure that his opponent was a heaven-defying cultivator. A dazzling golden light appeared around Chen. At this moment, Chen no longer held back or dodged. Powerful energy surged around him as he suddenly punched forward. This punch caused a sharp whistling sound as it landed heavily on the wind blade. Boom! The sky suddenly shook. The two types of energy confronted each other and instantly exploded. The wind blade instantly exploded, turning into energy and dissipating. However, Chen's body was directly sent flying. Even as the berserk energy wreaked havoc, the young man did not retreat a single step. At the corner of his mouth, a trace of blood flowed out. However, the young man's eyes were extremely bright as he looked at Chen. Those eyes were as bright as Xing Chen's. The young man wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said with a ferocious smile, "I feel a trace of a heaven-defying cultivator's aura from you. It seems that my guess was right. You are this world's heaven-defying cultivator." As soon as these words came out, it caused an uproar. The expressions of the heaven realm cultivators changed dramatically. Obviously, these words clearly indicated that Chen was a heaven-defying cultivator and was the target of all the mutated races. Just as everyone was shocked, the young man changed the topic and said again, "It's a pity that you haven't condensed the heaven-defying energy. Your combat strength is too weak." "Is that so?" Chen stabilized his body. Uninjured, he stared at the young man. His expression became cold. Dazzling golden light flashed around him. He raised his hands in front of his chest and began to form hand seals. "Heavenly path technique?" The young man smiled and said disdainfully, "To me, ordinary heavenly path techniques are useless." As he spoke, another wind blade appeared in front of the young man. The young man stepped forward, grabbed the long blade, and flew toward Chen again. Looking at the young man rushing toward him again, Chen's expression did not change. However, The speed of his hand seals became faster and faster. When the last seal was completed, his expression became colder and colder. He shouted, "Extreme Yang!" In front of Ziqin, a golden sun seemed to appear out of nowhere. The dazzling golden light made everyone unable to open their eyes. At the same time, the violent lightning power completely spread out. Boom! Almost as soon as the seal was completed, the wind blade slashed down. When the extreme yang energy completely exploded, Ziqin used the force to retreat. The heaven and earth shook. The wind blade that had just formed exploded again. At the same time, the dazzling and violent golden lightning surged toward the young man. The energy surged, and the young man walked out. His robe was torn in many places, and his expression was quite embarrassing. A trace of anger appeared on his face. He coldly stared at Ziqin, and his voice was filled with cold, murderous intent. "Today you must die." As soon as he finished speaking, the young man's aura changed again. This time, it became even stranger and more terrifying. His eyes were fixed on Ziqin, cold and emotionless. Ziqin's eyes lit up when he was being stared at like a venomous snake. He finally realized why the two of them were so different, even though they were both heaven-defying cultivators. The difference was in the way they used their energy. Die. The young man rushed toward Ziqin. However, this time, what appeared in his hand was no longer a wind blade, but a real heavenly blade. The heavenly blade was cyan. As the cyan light shone, it seemed to be made up of many wind blades, and it had a fierce intent. Thunder blade manipulation. With a low and cold shout, the blade spirit jumped out of Ziqin's world and came to Ziqin's side. On the blade, there were 3 colors of thunder and fire. After trembling slightly in the void, it turned into 3 colors and rushed toward the young man. Clang! The extreme speed of the blade spirit caused the young man's expression to change slightly. He slashed down and blocked the attack, sending the blade spirit flying. In front of him, Ziqin's hands formed a seal again. It was the same extreme yang as before. Although Ziqin had only grasped the surface of extreme yang, its power was not weaker than a second-level heavenly path technique. It was very powerful. Extreme yang exploded in the sky, and the young man's exasperated voice rang out. A thick blade light, carrying the aura of a heaven-defying, slashed toward Ziqin. The energy that formed this attack was the heaven-defying energy that the young man had mentioned. It was very terrifying and could destroy all life in the world. The heavenly realm cultivators who were watching the battle retreated again and again because this energy was too strong. Even the aftershocks could destroy life. Ziqin clenched his fists and punched at the blade light. Boom! The blade light, formed by the heaven-defying energy, exploded in the sky, and Ziqin's body was sent flying. The two's combat strength was almost the same, and they both gained and lost during the battle. Ziqin was constantly using extreme yin and extreme yang, as well as thunderblade manipulation. While blocking the young man's attacks, he would also occasionally counterattack. Up until now, the young man had coughed up blood several times, but Ziqin did not even once. He was expressionless, and his attacks were getting faster and faster. If one looked carefully, they would find that Ziqin's attack energy seemed to be slowly changing, and attack power was getting stronger and stronger. As a heaven-defying cultivator, the young man's knowledge was far greater than Ziqin's. Feeling that Ziqin's attack was getting stronger and stronger, he also felt a trace of fear in his heart. No wonder he was regarded as the most terrifying, heaven-defying cultivator, and the one who was most likely to defy the heavens. He still had such a powerful attack without completely evolving the heaven-defying energy. After another big collision, the young man took advantage of the momentum to fly back hundreds of meters. He stood in the air and did not attack. Ziqin stared at him from afar and did not attack. With his current strength, even if he used all his means, he would not be able to keep his opponent. The young man named Carrie looked at Ziqin from afar and said coldly, You are indeed a heaven-defying cultivator. Remember my name, Carrie. I come from Kassastar. The next time we meet, it will be the time of your death. The next time we meet, you will die." Zichen looked at him with indifference and confidence. Carrie smiled and did not continue to bicker with Zichen. Instead, he looked back at the Heaven Realm experts who were watching the battle from afar and said, "This man is a heaven-defying cultivator and also our main target this time. If you continue to follow him, you will be our enemy, and we will never leave our enemies alive." Being threatened by an expert who had fought to a draw with Zichen, the expressions of the Heaven Realm experts changed drastically. Carrie sneered again and said, "We only came for the heaven-defying cultivator. Now that a heaven-defying cultivator has appeared, our only enemy is a heaven-defying cultivator. Don't think that he is strong just because he is a heaven-defying cultivator. Let me tell you, there is more than one heaven-defying cultivator in this world." Carrie's words made the others even more confused, but Zichen, who was a heaven-defying cultivator, had already heard a lot of information from Carrie's words. Chapter 1935. Carrie's gaze swept across the heavenly realm cultivators present. Wherever he looked, all the heavenly realm cultivators intentionally lowered their heads or avoided Carrie's gaze. Among the group, no one dared to look Carrie in the eye. He had fought Zichen to a draw. Carrie smiled disdainfully at the crowd and gave Zichen one last deep look before he turned around and left. Zichen didn't chase after him, although he could catch up to him with the fastest speed under the heavens. Zichen didn't have the confidence to stop him. The battle with Carrie had given Zichen a new understanding of heaven-defying cultivators. He had also gained a comprehensive understanding of the energy used by heaven-defying cultivators. He had benefited greatly from this battle. He believed that it wouldn't be long before he could transform his own heaven-defying energy. When that time came, Zichen believed that Carrie would be dead for sure if they were to fight again. Carrie's last words also shocked Zichen. As he thought of a certain possibility, Zichen felt a chill emerge from the bottom of his heart. His body couldn't help but tremble. Zichen looked up at the starry sky. Even though it was a clear day, he could still see the shining Xingchen in the sky. If what Carrie said was true, then in Zichen's eyes, every Xingchen was equivalent to a world. In that case, there would be a heaven-defying cultivator in every world. The invasion of the foreign races this time all came from the visible Xingchen. If these cultivators' target was him, then there would be many heaven-defying cultivators among Zichen's foreign enemies. Although Zichen was confident that he could kill Carrie once he sensed the heaven-defying energy, Zichen still wouldn't be able to resist if many existences on par with Carrie appeared all at once. PFFF! Zichen, who hadn't suffered any injuries from beginning to end, suddenly coughed up blood without warning. He seemed to have the upper hand in his battle with Carrie, but in reality, he had suffered heavy injuries. "My lord, are you all right?" Seeing Zichen vomit blood, Wei Chen was shocked. He immediately rushed up and asked with concern. Zichen shook his head and said, "I'm fine. I just suffered some energy shocks." Wei Chen was the only one who came. The rest of the Heaven Realm experts still stood in the distance. They looked at Zichen with complicated gazes. Carrie's battle prowess was very strong, and his words just now had given them too much of a shock. Now that Zichen had spat out blood in his battle with Carrie, what would Zichen do if more heaven-defying adepts appeared? Heavenly soldiers were important, but no matter how important they were, they couldn't compare to one's own life. As they thought about it, many Heaven Realm experts turned their heads and looked around. Then they saw the intention to leave in quite a few people's eyes. Thus, these people nodded and decisively chose to retreat. Because there was no friendship between the two parties, when they left, they didn't even greet each other and directly left. Seeing so many cultivators leave without saying goodbye, a trace of anger appeared on Wei Chen's face. Back then, it wasn't Lord Zichen who begged them to come. They were the ones who vowed to kill the foreign races and pestered him to join. But now, Carrie had left without even saying goodbye after just a few threats. In contrast to Wei Chen's somewhat extreme emotions, Zi Chen's expression was still calm. He was indifferent to everyone's departure. Some left, some followed. Some were heartless, and some remembered old friendships. Some of the cultivators came before Zi Qin and Wei Qin. They respectfully bowed and said with an apologetic expression, "Lord Zi Qin, we're really sorry. We have to go." Seeing the apologetic faces of the Heaven Realm experts, Zi Qin faintly smiled and nodded. "We'll meet again. Everyone be careful." They nodded and left. Seeing them leave, everyone looked back at Zi Qin. Not only was he not angry, he even kindly greeted them. Following this, many Heaven Realm experts who decided to leave came to say goodbye. In response, Zi Qin nodded. Among the crowd, there was a relatively strong Heaven Realm expert. He came before Zi Qin, bowed, and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, Lord Zi Qin. I'm here to kill the foreign races. Forgive me for not being able to stay here." The meaning of this sentence was very clear. He came for the foreign races. If he wanted to fight, he would fight for the war-martial continent, not for a mere person. Zi Qin nodded and said indifferently, "Scram." The Heaven Realm expert was startled. Clearly, he didn't expect Zi Qin to say such a thing. "Scram." Zi Qin didn't even bother to look at him. It was still the same sentence, but his tone was much heavier. The Heaven Realm expert's expression changed. He turned around and left. He had seen Zi Qin's methods. If he dared to talk nonsense again, he would definitely be killed on the spot. If you want to leave, then leave. You actually want to act like you're so righteous. Such a person is simply shameful. Looking at the back of the Heaven Realm expert, a trace of anger appeared on Wei Chen's face. He had an impression of this person. Relying on his little bit of strength, he warmly greeted him as soon as he joined. Then he asked about the details of obtaining a heaven weapon and the exact contribution. Now that he knew that it was impossible to obtain a heaven weapon by following Zi Qin, he actually said such words. Due to Carrie's threat, more than 60% of the 100 Heaven Realm experts left. However, Zi Qin was still a little surprised that nearly 30% of them remained. Following this, Zi Qin didn't choose to move forward. Instead, he continued to stay in place. On one hand, he was healing his injuries. On the other hand, he was condensing his own heaven-defying energy. The so-called heaven-defying energy was the law that one comprehended. Of course, it wasn't all the laws, but the one and only law. The law that Zi Qin comprehended back then was destruction. Therefore, his heaven-defying energy was destruction energy. However, in the previous battle, the heavenly path origin power that Zi Qin used was the origin power produced by his world. There were too many attributes in it, and it wasn't just the origin power of destruction. Back then, Zi Qin didn't realize this. However, after his battle with Carrie, he realized that the heaven-defying energy of a heaven-defying cultivator was the one and only law. After realizing this, Zi Qin's consciousness sank into his world. Looking at the ocean like heavenly path origin, Zi Qin realized that it wasn't that easy to condense the origin power of destruction from these origins. This was mainly because he had too many heavenly path origins. It was quite difficult to completely change the quality of these heavenly path origins. 2 days later, Zi Qin recovered from his injuries. As for the origin power of destruction, although he still hadn't fully condensed it, Zi Qin had already figured out the knack of it. He believed that it wouldn't be long before he could fully condense it, and his combat strength would undergo a huge transformation. Carrie returned with injuries. Naturally, he wouldn't hide any information about a heaven-defying cultivator. He quickly told them everything. The foreign races were very happy to have discovered a heaven-defying cultivator so early. However, while they were happy, the foreign races had no choice but to retreat. In the current world, the only way to deal with a heaven-defying cultivator was to use methods that were comparable to a heaven-defying cultivator. Under normal circumstances, apart from a few amazing talents, Who could stop a heaven-defying cultivator? The answer was almost none. Only a heaven-defying cultivator could stop them. Therefore, in addition to Carrie, another heaven-defying cultivator came to Zichen. As a heaven-defying cultivator, he wanted to see what was the difference between him and the legendary heaven-defying cultivator. Seeing another heaven-defying cultivator standing in front of them, the remaining heaven-defying cultivators recalled Carrie's words. Their expressions changed, and they quickly retreated. Obviously, someone who dared to come alone and block Zichen's path must be another heaven-defying cultivator. Zichen didn't stop. He walked straight ahead, looking at the heaven-defying cultivator in front of him. The heaven-defying cultivator looked very young and full of vitality. He was also sizing up Zichen. "My name is Sishan. I'm from Planet C." The heaven-defying cultivator was the first to speak. His voice was indifferent. "Zichen." Stopping 200 meters away, Zichen spoke. After a simple introduction, the energy around them began to surge. Then a powerful aura surged as the two began to fight. Extreme yang, extreme yin, thunder saber manipulation. Zichen, who only had these three techniques, constantly changed his attacks. During the battle, Sishan coughed up large mouthfuls of blood as his body flew backward. After fighting with Zichen for about 15 minutes, Sishan said, "See you next time." Then he disappeared from sight. This was the second heaven-defying cultivator. Zichen still couldn't do anything to him. There were less than 40% of the heavenly realms left. After Sishan left, another half of them left. About half a month later, these people still didn't encounter any other heaven-defying cultivators. Then they saw another heaven-defying cultivator. This was the third heaven-defying cultivator. With an arrogant expression, he stopped Zichen and introduced himself. "Kola, I'm here to kill you today." Considering that there might be more heaven-defying cultivators coming to challenge him, this time Zichen didn't even introduce himself and directly attacked. In the past half a month, Zichen hadn't been idle. His golden body and two doppelgangers had been sitting cross-legged on the periphery of the Origin Sea, constantly condensing destructive energy. Although he hadn't refined a trace of it, yet, in the process, Zichen's battle strength was naturally stronger because he had a clear perception of his own energy. This time, Kola was even more miserable than the previous two. At least when the other two left, they could still speak, but Kola couldn't say a word. He coughed up blood and fled into the distance. Zichen was very strong when he encountered three heaven-defying cultivators. But what if the three came together? What if more heaven-defying cultivators came? In the end, some heaven-defying cultivators also chose to leave. Among them, a few who really followed Zichen to kill aliens also chose to leave in the end, because they had already seen that following Zichen would only lead to heaven-defying cultivators and no other aliens. Everyone left, leaving only Wei Qin. He had been following Zichen from the beginning, and now he was the last to leave. Zichen looked at Wei Qin and said, "My next enemy will only be heaven-defying cultivators. You should go too. It's been a hard journey. Be careful." Wei Qin nodded. He couldn't intervene in the battle between heaven-defying cultivators. "Here are two heaven-defying cultivators. Take them." Zichen took out a saber and a sword, smiled at Wei Qin, and walked forward. Chapter 1936. After the three heaven-defying battles, Zichen no longer had any followers. Zichen had no complaints about this, nor did he blame them. As he moved forward, the number of Heaven Realm aliens he killed increased, and his enemies also became stronger. He originally thought that he was the only heaven-defying cultivator in this world. But who would have thought that there was one in every world? This time, the alien invasion came from the endless starry sky above his head. Zichen naturally had to face these heaven-defying cultivators from the starry sky. If nothing unexpected happened, other heaven-defying cultivators would appear. These heaven-defying cultivators left immediately after the battle because they knew that they couldn't kill Zichen, so they were testing him. It wouldn't be long before the real life and death battle arrived. Zi Chen's enemies had already leveled up to become heaven-defying cultivators, and those aliens had also become more restrained because of his appearance. He didn't need to continue moving through the continent, so he slowed down and focused on comprehending the heaven-defying energy. In a primeval forest, Zi Chen sat cross-legged on an ancient tree. The dense leaves blocked Zi Chen's view. Occasionally, a battle beast would pass by below, but they couldn't find any trace of Zi Chen. Zi Chen had stayed on this ancient tree for a month. During this month, he devoted himself to the process of condensing the heaven-defying energy, but he was always a little bit away from successfully refining the heaven-defying energy. Zi Chen opened his eyes, and a hint of disappointment flashed through his dark pupils. He had comprehended too many laws in the past, so it was very difficult for him to condense the heaven-defying energy now. At this moment, it was as if he had encountered a bottleneck. Just a little bit, just a little bit. As for the heaven-defying energy of the other heaven-defying cultivators, although Zi Chen hadn't sensed it, he guessed that it was impossible for them to be like him with perfect worlds and laws. Suddenly, Zi Chen sensed something. He looked up, and his gaze seemed to pass through the dense leaves. Boom! As the energy exploded, the ancient tree that Zi Chen was sitting cross-legged on, along with all the other ancient trees within a 100-meter radius, instantly turned into dust and disappeared. A skinny man with an indifferent expression appeared in the sky. His gaze swept across the violent energy before he looked at Zi Chen, who was 100 meters away. A cold smile appeared on his face as he said, "You sure know how to hide. Hiding here made it easy for me to find you." Zi Chen glanced at him and said indifferently, "Where did you come from, defying the heavens?" The man replied coldly, "Remember my name, Winged Star." As soon as the Winged Star finished speaking, he charged towards Zi Chen. As he charged forward, energy vibrated on his back, and a pair of wings emitting the light of Xing Chen appeared out of thin air. With a flap of its wings, the speed of the Winged Star, which was not slow to begin with, skyrocketed once more. His speed skyrocketed, and his hands stretched forward like sharp claws. Streaks of cold light shot out from his fingers, tearing viciously at Zi Chen. Whoosh! As his hands tore, the space was instantly torn apart, and a huge black hole appeared. In the depths of the black hole was space turbulence. A hint of surprise flashed through the man's indifferent expression. He turned his head and looked at a certain spot in the void. There, a vague shadow turned into Zi Chen's figure. His speed was famous even among the heaven-defying ones. He did not expect that his full speed attack would be dodged. It seemed that the other party's speed was faster. The Winged Star was surprised, but he did not know that Zi Chen's expression was also surprised. In this Zhanwu continent, there was almost no speed that could compete with the world's fastest speed. However, the speed displayed by the other party made him feel threatened, and he instantly used the heavenly thunder wings. The Winged Star obviously did not recognize the famous heavenly thunder wings. With a roar, he rushed towards Zi Chen again. Zi Chen formed a seal with both hands, and golden energy surged around his body, spreading out like ripples of water. Then, Extreme Yang appeared. Boom! The void exploded, and the Winged Star's figure rushed out of the shattered energy like a wolf. Every time he fought against a heaven-defying one, although he did not kill the enemy, he always had the upper hand. Go to hell! After rushing out of the energy, the embarrassed Winged Star shouted angrily. A heavenly blade appeared in his hand, and he slashed at Zi Chen. Qi heaven-defying energy surged from the tip of the blade, forming a thick blade aura that slashed at Zi Chen. Thunder blade manipulation. The tricolored light of thunder and fire flashed, and the blade's spirit arrived in front of the heaven-defying blade aura. Clang! As the two sides came into contact, the blade spirit was directly sent flying. Heaven-defying energy was a higher level of energy that was unique to heaven-defying ones. Although Zi Chen was also a heaven-defying one, Before he condensed the heaven-defying energy, he was only a stronger existence than ordinary heaven-defying ones. He could not be called a qualified heaven-defying one. The heaven-defying blade aura shook off the blade spirit, and its power did not diminish. It continued to slash at Zichen's head. Huh. Zichen shouted, clenched his fists, crossed them, and raised them to block the blade aura. Boom! With the sound of energy vibrating, the heaven-defying blade aura exploded, and Zichen was directly sent flying. Several wounds appeared on his arms, and there were several deep energy cuts on his chest. Seeing that Zichen was injured in one blow, a hint of sarcasm flashed in the winged star's eyes. He sneered and said, "It is said that the heaven-defying ones from the Zhanwu continent are the most likely to be heaven-defying existences. Today I see that you are just SOSO." Golden blood dripped from the wounds. Zichen looked up at the winged star, his expression still cold. With the world's fastest speed, if he insisted on dodging, he would not be injured, but he was always a little bit away from condensing the heaven-defying energy, and he could not condense it. Zichen's heart was filled with determination. Since he could not condense it, then he would carefully sense it and slowly comprehend it. Therefore, he chose to be hit by this blow. The heaven-defying energy of the winged star did not disappoint Zichen. It broke his defense with one blow and injured him. Again, as the cold voice came out of his mouth, Zichen rushed toward the winged star. In the process of rushing forward, he grimaced from time to time, and the corners of his mouth twitched. That was the pain caused by the heaven-defying energy raging in his body. He did not forcibly expel this energy. Instead, he magnified his perception and carefully sensed this heaven-defying energy. Seeing Zichen rush over, the winged star did not hold back and slash down again. He did not use the heavenly path spell at all, just the heaven-defying energy activated by the heaven-defying weapon. But the attack formed was already very terrifying, and it could kill ordinary heavenly realm experts in an instant. Skyblade turned into a stream of light again and took the initiative to block the attack, but he was sent flying again. Then the attack fell on Zichen. Zichen's body was sent flying a second time. Of course, this was intentional. More heaven-defying energy entered his body, and pain came from all over his body. The corners of Zichen's mouth kept twitching. He deliberately sensed the heaven-defying energy, but it was impossible for him to be stupid enough to take the attack head-on. He let the saber spirit block it first, and the saber spirit was a heaven-defying weapon, so it would not be damaged at all. Under the wholehearted perception, Zichen perceived the attribute of the winged star from this heaven-defying energy. It was a kind of existence that leaned toward the metal element of the 5 elements, but it was more powerful and terrifying than the metal element because it belonged to the heaven-defying energy. In the process of perceiving, Zichen's perfect spiritual senses captured a trace of this energy and was ready to break it down. Uft! However, the spiritual senses that had just been probed were instantly annihilated by the heaven-defying energy, which showed how powerful the heaven-defying energy was. If all the spiritual senses swarmed forward, they would tear the heaven-defying energy apart. However, if all of them did not rush forward, they would not be able to defeat the opponent in a one-on-one battle. In desperation, Zichen could only use the tactic of quantity. As a trace of spiritual senses was broken, a second trace of spiritual senses rushed forward again. In this way, he used the method of spiritual senses to continuously consume the heaven-defying energy. When the heaven-defying energy was exhausted to the point where it could no longer attack, he would slowly peel the cocoon and tear the opponent apart bit by bit to explore the opponent's secrets. In Zichen's sea of consciousness, his perfect spiritual senses were divided into hundreds of strands, capturing hundreds of heaven-defying energy that belonged to the winged star. Then they were breaking down the heaven-defying energy in hundreds of places, which could speed up the speed of Zichen's perception of the heaven-defying energy. At the same time, Zichen was still fighting with the winged star in the outside world, deliberately taking more attacks. If the winged star knew that Zi-Chun was doing other things while fighting, it would be very shocked. In fact, the current winged star was already shocked. The one who was recognized as the strongest heaven-defying expert was already covered in blood and injuries. It looked like he was on the verge of death, but the other party couldn't fall down no matter what. It was as if he couldn't be killed at all. It should be known that the heaven-defying energy was innately capable of extinguishing life. Zi-Chen's body had endured a lot of his heaven-defying energy. If it had been anyone else, they would have died countless times. Even a heaven-defying expert would have died by now. However, not only was Zi-Chen still alive, but he was also living very well. He was staring at the winged star with an extremely calm and even bright gaze, which made the winged star's hair stand on end. "Go to hell!" The winged star shouted. He had shouted like this many times. Just like before, Zi-Chun was sent flying. However, after stabilizing his body, Zi-Chun rushed towards the winged star again. Now, Zi-Chun was covered in blood. The heaven-defying energy was raging on his wounds. But he still didn't fall down. How could this be? The winged star hated that he couldn't understand this situation. Hence, he sent Zi-Chun flying again. This time, Zi-Chun didn't rush forward. Instead, he stood in the distance after stabilizing his body. The winged star's expression changed. He thought to himself, "You're going to die this time." He saw that Zi-Chen's eyes were getting brighter and brighter. There seemed to be a carefree smile in those bright eyes. Just as the winged star didn't understand what was going on, he heard Zi-Chen say, "Your heaven-defying energy is made up of 7 types of laws. The strongest of the 7 is the metal law. The remaining 6 are considered auxiliary laws. They don't have such a strong offensive ability." The winged star's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling because Zi-Chen had accurately explained the origin of his heaven-defying energy. However, what made him feel even worse was that calm and indifferent tone of Zi-Chen's. There was a sense of superiority in his tone, as if he was looking down on everything in the world. It was as if at this moment Zi-Chen was the ruler of the world, and the winged star was an ant in the world. "Sure enough," Zi-Chen said, "you can be called a heaven-defying if you're just a fusion of 7 types of laws. It's really puzzling." In the next moment, Zi-Chun raised his hand. There was a stream of energy in his palm that was like a spirit snake. Chapter 1937. Hovering in the sky, Zi-Chen looked down at the winged star. A flow of energy was hovering in his palm, which looked like a small, agile snake. It was a new type of energy that had evolved from many principles. It was an energy that had never appeared in the Zhan Wu continent. It was also an energy that had never existed in the Zhan Wu continent. In the history of the Zhan Wu continent and the Zhan Wu continent, there might have been a similar combination of energies. However, the quantity of the energy in Zi-Chen's hand wasn't as much. This energy was the heaven-defying energy that Zi-Chen had been waiting for a long time. With this kind of energy, a heaven-defying warrior would be a true heaven-defying warrior. After analyzing the heaven-defying energy of the winged star, Zi-Chen had finally understood the components of the heaven-defying energy at the cost of his life. Finally, he had taken the last step. When the winged star saw the energy in Zi-Chen's hand and sensed its aura, he discolored in fright. That aura of a heaven-defying warrior made him feel an inexplicable fear. His body couldn't help but shiver. They both had the heaven-defying aura and the heaven-defying energy. However, the difference between them was like the difference between an ordinary human and an emperor. Zi-Chen's heaven-defying energy was composed of many principles, including many powerful ones. For example, the life principle, which was stronger than the 5 elements principle, the good and evil principle, the true and false principle, the slaughter principle, and many other powerful principles. There was even the principle of heaven and earth that couldn't appear at the same time. There was also a special alien principle that could fuse with the principle of heaven and earth. Of course, the heaven-defying energy, created by the fusion of so many principles, wasn't something that the metal principle and the 6 supporting principles could compare to. The winged star was shaken. He finally sensed the difference between the two of them. The heaven-defying warrior of the life star was worthy of being called the strongest heaven-defying warrior. Just that flow of heaven-defying energy was enough to make him feel the threat of death. Zi-Chun hovered in the air, his face indifferent. At the same time, the clouds in the sky were crushed by a mysterious energy. Then the earth and heaven energy within 100 miles began to surge crazily. As the energy surged, a mysterious wave spread out in all directions. This was a wave of heavenly might. Wherever it passed, all beasts would prostrate and tremble. The ripples of energy spread out for hundreds of kilometers, then thousands of kilometers, tens of thousands of kilometers, hundreds of millions of kilometers. In the end, the ripples left the 7th landmass and headed toward the 8th and 6th landmasses. All the heaven realm cultivators could clearly sense this aura fluctuation, and even the false heaven realm cultivators could faintly sense the pressure coming from it. What happened? Where is this fluctuation coming from? What a powerful fluctuation! It actually spread across the entire continent. As the ripples spread out, the expressions of many heaven realm cultivators who sensed the abnormality changed. They looked up into the air and sensed the abnormality. On the 7th mainland, the heavenly realms sensed a dangerous aura from that fluctuation, as if some peerless beast had suddenly awoken from its slumber. How could this be? Unlike the other heaven realm cultivators who only sensed it differently, the winged star saw this abnormality with his own eyes. His pupils widened as he looked at the sky, his eyes full of shock. In the sky, within a radius of 100 kilometers, numerous origin dragons appeared. They were majestic and vast, as if they came from ancient times. Their bodies exuded an ancient aura fluctuation. They floated in the air, and their majestic dragon eyes fell on Zi-Chun. However, there was hesitation, fear, and even reverence in those dragon eyes. When a heaven-defying cultivator obtained a heaven-defying energy, it could trigger a change in heaven and earth. Every heaven-defying cultivator would experience this phenomenon, and the winged star had also experienced it. However, at that time, the only heaven-defying cultivator in that world was only an origin dragon. But now he raised his head and looked around. Within a radius of 100 kilometers, there was an origin dragon almost every 100 meters. During this period, their bodies were almost invisible. Only the dragon heads poked out of the void and looked at Zi-Chun. The number was almost impossible to estimate. Back then, the origin dragon of the winged star descended from the sky and landed on him, representing that heaven and earth had recognized his heaven-defying energy. But now there was hesitation, fear, and even reverence in the eyes of the countless origin dragons. This was a question that all heaven-defying cultivators didn't dare to think about. The fluctuation spread out, and then the origin dragon's recognition came. However, to the winged star's surprise, these origin dragons didn't land in the end. Instead, after some hesitation, they disappeared into thin air one by one. In the winged star's eyes, this scene was not recognized by heaven and earth. However, the winged star wasn't happy at all. On the contrary, he was full of despair. According to legend, the heaven-defying cultivators from life stars and living worlds were known as the strongest heaven-defying cultivators. They were the most promising existence to defy heaven and earth. They were also uncontrollable. Even the heavenly Tao couldn't control them. Today, the origin dragons didn't descend, nor did they recognize the other party as a heaven-defying cultivator. However, this also proved that the heaven-defying cultivators had begun to become uncontrollable and didn't need to be recognized by heaven and earth. When the origin dragons disappeared, the shattered clouds in the sky reappeared. The sky and earth became quiet again. However, the heaven-defying energy in Zi-Chun's hand didn't dissipate. Instead, it showed signs of expanding. Sure enough, even without the recognition of heaven and earth, he was still a heaven-defying cultivator. The changes in the sky and earth stunned Zi-Chun. when he saw the origin dragons with some kind of emotion. Zichen didn't understand why they had appeared. In the end, the origin dragons disappeared again. Nothing else happened during this period. Zichen came back to his senses and looked at the winged star indifferently. Run! Under Zichen's cold gaze, this was the first thought that came to Winged Star's mind. Immediately after, his body responded. He turned around and starlight wings appeared on his back. He flapped his wings and started to run. Zichen's eyes flickered as he watched the winged star escape. He slowly raised his hand and glanced at the first trace of heaven-defying energy he had condensed. At this moment, the winged star had run dozens of miles away. Zichen slowly raised his palm. The heaven-defying energy in front of him seemed to have turned into a feather. It trembled slightly with Zichen's breathing. Phew! Zichen opened his mouth and blew out a breath. The heaven-defying energy in his palm slowly floated up. It made a circle in the air and then flew forward. It seemed to be moving very slowly. However, it was getting closer and closer to the winged star, who was escaping at top speed. The winged star seemed to have sensed danger approaching. He turned around while running and saw the heaven-defying energy floating in the air. His expression changed. He began to speed up and change his direction at the same time. However, this rapid change in direction was of no use at all. The heaven-defying energy had firmly locked onto his life force. Even if he fled into the void, the heaven-defying energy did not slow down at all. It was still able to accurately locate him. Damn it! How could this be? Seeing that he couldn't escape, the winged star was furious. He turned around and slashed at the heaven-defying energy with his heaven-defying weapon. The slash was fast, accurate, and ruthless. Swoosh! The slash hit the heaven-defying energy. However, the heaven-defying weapon stopped in an instant. It was as if it had hit a divine mountain. A huge rebound force was emitted. The slash didn't cause any damage to the heaven-defying energy. Instead, it caused the winged star to stagger and lose his balance. As the winged star staggered backward, the heaven-defying energy floated forward and landed on the winged star's chest. The energy, which was as light as a feather, finally displayed its powerful power at this moment. The energy spread, and a big hole appeared in the winged star's chest. Inside the big hole there was nothing. The winged star lowered his head and looked at the big hole in his chest that was still expanding. The body that belonged to him in the big hole had already turned into nothingness. His face was filled with horror and horror. The crisis of death instantly shrouded his heart. However, he was helpless. He could only watch as his body disappeared in the heaven-defying energy. First, it was his body, then his arms, legs, and finally his head. As the heaven-defying energy spread, the winged star turned into nothingness. Only a heaven-defying weapon was left in the world. The heaven-defying weapon immediately transformed into its human form and wanted to escape. However, Zichen's cold eyes fell on it from afar, causing its heart to tremble. Swoosh! In the end, the heaven-defying weapon transformed from its human form into a weapon and fell into Zichen's hand. The next moment, Zichen took a step forward and disappeared between heaven and earth. A powerful heaven-defying cultivator died in a place where there was no one around. This was also the first heaven-defying cultivator to die since the invasion of the foreign tribes. Not long after Zichen left, a few figures appeared. They were all in the heaven realm, but they were also from the foreign races. That aura has disappeared. On this battlefield, other than the messy traces, they couldn't sense any other aura. Where is Lord Winged Star? Is he not here? They were from the Winged Star. They had sensed the Winged Star's aura earlier, but now they couldn't see him. It was difficult for non-heaven-defying cultivators to sense the abnormality here. The Winged Star hadn't returned for a long time, and the Heaven Realm cultivators couldn't sense his aura. They had to invite other heaven-defying cultivators. The newcomer was a man with thick eyebrows, big eyes, and long horns on his head. His eyes flashed with blood-red light from time to time. He came to the battlefield that was still intact and looked down from the sky. Red light flashed in his eyes as if he was deducing the battle through the traces of the battlefield. After a while, the heaven-defying cultivator said, "The winged star was indeed here that day. It was another heaven-defying cultivator who fought with him. But where is Lord Winged Star?" An old man asked anxiously. The heaven-defying cultivator turned his gaze again and saw the golden blood on the ground. The blood seemed to replay the scene of the battle for him. He could sense that the winged star was absolutely superior. However, something seemed to have happened after that. The heaven-defying cultivator turned his head and looked 100 miles away, following the aura. Then his figure flashed and flew forward. This was the place where the winged star died. It was also the place where the winged star's aura disappeared. After carefully investigating, the heaven-defying cultivator's pupils suddenly shrank. He said, "The winged star is dead." "What? Lord Winged Star is dead? How is that possible? He was killed by Zi-Chin." The heaven-defying cultivator's words were indifferent. His eyes flashed with red light, and there was caution and fear. Chapter 1938. Zi-Chen, the heaven-defying warrior. The old man was startled. Although he was astonished, he also had many doubts. Zi-Chen's name had spread out among the Heaven Realm experts. He was the heaven-defying warrior who had killed hundreds of Heaven Realm experts. Among the ordinary Heaven Realm experts, Zi-Chen was strong enough. However, among the heaven-defying warriors, the news about Zi-Chen wasn't strong, and the response wasn't big. In the previous few tests, although the heaven-defying cultivators were injured, the conclusion was that Zi-Chen could do nothing to them. How could Zi-Chen, who wasn't really strong, kill the mighty winged star? Isn't he weak? With a doubtful look on his face, the old man voiced the doubt in his heart. His eyes raking through the battlefield, the heaven-defying warrior suddenly recalled the familiar aura of heaven and earth that he had sensed that day. He said with a stern face, "The heaven-defying warriors of the life stars always have the title of the strongest heaven-defying warrior." I said he wasn't strong because he hadn't risen yet. If I'm not wrong, the strange change of heaven and earth that day was a sign of his rise. The old man was startled. He remembered the rumors about the strongest heaven-defying warrior. Rumors said that the strongest heaven-defying warrior was the existence with the biggest change. Otherwise, the alien tribes wouldn't have sped up their invasion after knowing that the strongest heaven-defying warrior had appeared. It wasn't accurate to say that the alien tribes' invasion was aimed at the heaven-defying warriors. However, the heaven-defying warriors were one of the most important reasons for the invasion. Notify the other heaven-defying warriors immediately. The strongest heaven-defying warrior has risen. We need to use all of our forces to kill him, said the heaven-defying warrior coldly. In fact, they had never thought about probing. After they had confirmed that Zi-Chen was the heaven-defying warrior, the other heaven-defying warriors were on their way here. During this time, some of them couldn't wait and wanted to test Zi-Chen. However, their probing had stimulated Zi-Chen's potential, which made him rise ahead of time. This made it more difficult to kill Zi-Chen. Seeing the other's stern face, the old man nodded. He knew that this matter couldn't be delayed. Tell them to move faster. We can kill Zi-Chen before he rises completely. A look of worry appeared on the old man's face as he said, "What if he disappears?" The heaven-defying cultivator smiled mysteriously. "I don't think he will." The death of Winged Star was a heavy blow to Winged Star's forces. However, the most important thing right now was to gather all the heaven-defying cultivators and surround Zi-Chen to kill him once and for all. After killing the Winged Star, Zi-Chen found a secret place to cultivate in seclusion. He knew very well that the strength he had displayed this time would definitely terrify the other heaven-defying cultivators. The next time the heaven-defying cultivators attacked, it wouldn't be a one-on-one battle. He needed to take advantage of this time to condense all of his origins into heaven-defying energy. At that time, Zi-Chen would be considered a true heaven-defying powerhouse. He was also the strongest heaven-defying cultivator in the eyes of the world. Zi-Chen sat cross-legged in the sky above the Origin Sea. On his left was an energy clone flashing with golden light. On his right was a silver energy clone, and on his right was Zi-Chen's golden body. Zi-Chen and his 3 clones were condensing the heaven-defying energy at an accelerated pace without rest. In the outside world, as the news spread, many nearby heaven-defying cultivators rushed over. Killing the heaven-defying cultivators in the inhabited worlds was their top priority. In just a few days, 3 heaven-defying cultivators had come by invitation. All 3 of them had sparred with Zi-Chen before and had recovered from their injuries. They were extremely shocked when they heard that Zi-Chen had killed Wingstar. I never thought that in just a few months he would have grown to the point where he could kill Wingstar. Thinking back to the battle with Zi-Chen, Carrie still couldn't hide the shock on his face. He was the first to find Zi-Chen, so he was sure that Zi-Chen was a heaven-defying cultivator. During the battle, Zi-Chen was indeed very strong, but not ridiculously strong. He could come and go as he pleased. "He's always growing," Sishan said with a serious expression. Sishan said with a solemn expression. When he fought Zi-Chen, he also did not gain the slightest advantage. The last one was Kula. With the experience of fighting 2 heaven-defying cultivators, he was in a passive position as soon as he appeared. In the end, he fled in a sorry state. He had no right to speak here. All 3 of them had fought with Zi-Chen before. At that time, Zi-Chen didn't have the strength to kill a heaven-defying cultivator, but now he had killed Wingstar. It was obvious that Zi-Chen had condensed heaven-defying energy. Under such circumstances, it was simply courting death for a single person to challenge them. Songshan has already gone out to look for Zi-Chen. Let's see if he has any news. The 3 of them chose to continue waiting. 2 days later, 2 more heaven-defying cultivators arrived. Because of the different laws that formed the heaven-defying energy, there were also differences among the heaven-defying cultivators. The most obvious difference was the number of laws they had fused with the heaven-defying energy. The 2 newcomers were both powerhouses. One was called Qian and the other was Huiming. Both of them had fused more than 10 laws, which was more than the 3 of them. The heaven-defying aura they emitted was also stronger. "Where is he? We haven't found him yet," Huiming asked as soon as he arrived. His expression was very arrogant. Carrie shook his head and said, "We're still looking for him." Songshan said that Zi-Chen might be hiding and condensing the heaven-defying energy. Huiming frowned slightly and said, "This world is so big. It's easier said than done to find a heaven-defying cultivator. Is there no other way?" Qian wore a white robe and didn't say a word after appearing. Songshan said that he has a way. He said that we should wait for more people to come before we act together. "He's now trying to find Zi-Chen," Carrie said. "Is there a need to wait?" Huiming's face immediately showed dissatisfaction. He said, "Does Songshan think that the 6 of us together won't be a match for a mere Zi-Chen?" Thinking back to when Zi-Chen didn't have the heaven-defying energy, Zi-Chen wasn't weaker than a heaven-defying cultivator at that time. Now that he had the heaven-defying energy, his strength had probably grown to an unimaginable level. After a slight hesitation, Carrie said in a deep voice, "Zi-Chen is very strong." Huiming sneered and said, "No matter how strong he is, he's still a heaven-defying cultivator. When the time comes, we'll work together. The 4 of you will be responsible for holding the formation, while Qian and I will be responsible for killing him. I don't believe that he's strong enough to ignore my fire dragon kill and Qian Yao's 1,000 crane strike." Heaven-defying cultivators were the strongest existences in a world. Naturally, they were the main force of a world. It wasn't strange for them to have a heaven-defying cultivator. Moreover, their weapons were stronger than ordinary heaven-defying cultivators, so they were called heaven-defying cultivators. Huiming's conceit made the 3 of them sink into contemplation. In truth, they also didn't think that Zi-Chen was that strong. It had to be known that they were all heaven-defying cultivators. Their success depended on the number of laws they comprehended. They didn't believe that Zi Chen could comprehend that many laws. They wanted to compete again. Of course, they would work together. If they really couldn't win, they could also cooperate and escape. If 6 heaven-defying cultivators wanted to retreat, even a saint might not be able to stop them, let alone a heaven-defying cultivator on the same level. The 3 of them were somewhat shaken. Under Hu Ming's provocation, Carrie directly sent a message to Song Shan. Song Shan was a heaven-defying cultivator with a horn on his head. After hearing Hu Ming's suggestion, he seemed to be hesitant. After a moment, he shook his head and said, "No, the risk is too great. From what I sensed on the battlefield, Zi Chen's heaven-defying cultivator condensed a very powerful heaven-defying cultivator. I don't see the winged cultivator's corpse on the battlefield." Nothingness. Carrie and the other 2 were shocked. Even the silent Qian nigh glanced at Song Shan. What kind of joke is this? For a heaven-defying cultivator to turn a heaven-defying cultivator into nothingness, it must be the energy of a heaven-defying saint. Not seeing the corpse can only mean that Zi Chen took away the winged cultivator's corpse. After all, a heaven-defying cultivator's corpse is also a rare refining material. Hu Ming sneered. He didn't believe Song Shan's deduction at all. This sentence was very reasonable. Not only could a heaven-defying cultivator's corpse be refined into a heaven-defying cultivator's corpse, but so could a heaven-defying cultivator's corpse. Therefore, a heaven-defying cultivator's corpse wouldn't be seen in a battle between heaven-defying cultivators. I believe in my deduction. Song Shan still insisted. Even if Zi Chen is very strong and the 6 of us can't kill him together, we can at least ensure that we are still alive. At worst, we can test his methods and then decide how many heaven-defying cultivators to gather. Hu Ming naturally felt uncomfortable if he didn't make a move after coming here and seeing his target. His suggestion was also good, so it was equivalent to testing him. Who would have thought that when Song Shan heard this, his face would immediately turn gloomy? He coldly said, "No, absolutely not." Previously, it was because of testing that Zi Chen grew and condensed a heaven-defying cultivator's energy. If we didn't test him so much, Zi Chen would have been dead by the time we arrived. How could something like this have happened? This time, the 3 of them chose to remain silent. That was indeed what they had said at the beginning. However, the 3 of them couldn't resist the itch in their hearts to test Zi Chen's strength, so they deliberately tested him. Who would have thought that this test would actually speed up Zi Chen's growth? You said it yourself. Zi Chen has already condensed a heaven-defying cultivator's energy. Then why don't we attack without suffering any losses? First, we can test his true strength. Second, we can stop him from growing stronger, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Why not? Hu Ming said again. This sentence received unanimous agreement from everyone. After all, they wouldn't die, and they could restrain Zi Chen. There was no harm in it. After being persuaded by the 3 of them, Song Shan finally wavered. He nodded and said, "All right then, we'll try first, but remember to be careful. But right now, the most important thing should be how to find Zi Chen. That's not a difficult problem. Gather all the heaven-defying cultivators and outsiders. We'll go to Auspicious Lake City together." Song Shan had long since planned on how to lure Zi Chen out. He had already secretly mobilized the outsiders' army and the heaven-defying cultivators to surround Auspicious Lake City. Now, Song Shan wanted to use the lives of all the humans in Auspicious Lake City to threaten Zi Chen and force Zi Chen to show himself. To the heaven-defying cultivators, anyone below the heaven-defying realm was nothing but an ant. They didn't care at all, let alone the living beings of the Zhanwu continent. After the other 5 heard this, they didn't refuse and nodded. Chapter 1939. The outskirts of Jizhe region had been surrounded by the foreign race army. There were experts of all levels in the foreign race army, and there were even 6 heaven-defying experts. It would be a piece of cake for such a team to destroy such a city. Sensing the auras of the heaven realm experts outside the city, The cultivators of Jizei region fell into panic, including the Heaven Realm experts who hadn't escaped in time. The defensive formation had been activated. Looking at the city through the formation, Song Shan nodded in satisfaction when he saw the panicked cultivators in the city. This was the effect he wanted to see from the pressure of the army. He stepped forward and arrived outside the formation to ensure that his figure could be seen by all the cultivators in the city. A strange red light flashed in his eyes, and he smiled faintly. His voice was transmitted into the formation. Let me introduce myself first. I am Song Shan from a beautiful planet called Songwei Star. I am a heaven-defying one from our world. Hearing Song Shan's self-introduction, Huiming curled his lips and said, showing off your identity in front of a bunch of ants and being so proud of yourself. How boring. Qian Nai, who rarely spoke, glanced at Huiming and said, this isn't showing off, it's a method. Introducing yourself in front of people and showing off your identity can also be called a method? Huiming curled his lips. You'll know when you see. Some of the cultivators in the city heard Song Shan's words and their expressions changed. However, some of them were confused. Evidently, not everyone knew about heaven-defying experts. Song Shan did not show any anger at the ignorance of most cultivators. Instead, he patiently explained, heaven-defying cultivators are known as the strongest existences. They can be said to be invincible among those of the same level. Their battle prowess is very strong. Take Ziqin, who you are familiar with, for example. He has killed over 100 Heaven Realm cultivators by himself. He is a heaven-defying cultivator. When the cultivators in the city heard this, they were first in an uproar. Then, their expressions changed greatly, and their faces were filled with horror. Ziqin had killed over 100 Heaven Realm experts, which shocked them. However, they couldn't help but re-evaluate Song Shan. It was clear that both of them were heaven-defying experts, and this person had the ability to match Ziqin and kill hundreds of Heaven Realm experts. At that moment, there were only a dozen or so Heaven Realms in the vast Jizei region. They could not stop the other party at all. As their expressions changed, most of the cultivators in the city were on the verge of despair. There were also some who maintained their rationality, but their expressions were filled with doubt. Logically speaking, it would be a simple matter for such a powerful existence to destroy the city. So why waste time explaining to them? Could it be that there was something else? Song Shan smiled faintly when he saw those despairing expressions. He had already achieved half of his goal. He changed the topic and said, you don't have to worry too much. Our target this time is someone else. We won't kill the innocent. After despair came hope. Everyone looked at Song Shan, their faces full of surprise and expectation. Our goal this time is to find Ziqin. It is also because of Ziqin that we came here. Hearing this, everyone's expression became very complicated. They had all heard about Ziqin's deeds. He was a true hero, a truly powerful existence. In their hearts, Ziqin was worthy of respect. However, when they heard Song Shan's words, their thoughts began to change. Our goal is only Ziqin. Unfortunately, he has disappeared. We have searched many places but could not find him. He has gone into hiding. We have no choice but to surround the city. Song Shan said loudly, next, I will not kill the innocent. However, we must find Ziqin. Now, I will let 1/5 of you go. The rest of you go out and look for Ziqin. 10 days. I will only give you 10 days. If you cannot find Ziqin in 10 days, then the other cultivators in this city will be destroyed. The originally quiet city instantly became restless. Everyone was shocked at first, but then they rushed towards the city gates as fast as they could. No one could stop them. For a moment, the cultivators who had remained silent and even wanted to fight were completely thrown into chaos. Hope was right in front of them. When most people saw hope in their despair, the first thing they thought of was themselves. As such, the entire city fell into chaos. As long as they could get out, they would be able to survive. Looking at the chaotic city, Song Shan nodded in satisfaction. Behind him, Qian praised. Good plan. Those who leave are worried about the people in the city and will definitely look for Zichen. If the people in the city do not see Zichen, they will definitely feel resentment. Once their family members die, those who left will also blame it all on Zichen. This time, Zichen must appear. This could be considered coercion and coercion. As Songshan lightly waved his hand, 4 openings opened in the encirclement. The 4 openings faced the 4 city gates. Songshan's voice sounded out, "Pass down my orders. 1/5 of the people are allowed to leave, but Heaven Realm cultivators are not allowed to leave." Yes, a loud voice sounded out. "Remember, you only have 10 days. If 10 days are up and Zichen does not come, the auspicious lake region will cease to exist." The entire city fell into chaos, and there were even some pushing and shoving. After the 4 openings appeared in the Great City Barrier Formation, the cultivators began to riot. "Scram! Let me out! Let me out! I was the one who got here first. I can find Zichen. I know where Zichen is. Let me out! Go to hell! You dare to come here tonight? Go to hell!" It was shoving and shoving, followed by conflict. Finally, the conflict escalated and there were casualties. Many cultivators rushed out of the city through the openings. When they reached the encirclement, these cultivators were very nervous. But when they saw that the outsiders had no intention of attacking, they relaxed and immediately rushed into the distance. When the others saw that the outsiders were not attacking, they all madly rushed out of the city, and it was quite common for them to fight. Regardless of whether they could find Zichen or not, those 10 days were enough for them to run far away and escape this calamity. Seeing the chaos at the 4 city gates, Songshan smiled coldly. After a moment, he waved his hand and said, "There are enough people. If anyone comes out, kill them without mercy." As he spoke, the encirclement was once again blocked by the outsiders. When the human cultivators saw this, their expressions changed drastically. Some of them were unwilling and wanted to force their way through. Buffed, buffed, buffed. The outsiders attacked fiercely and cultivators were killed one after another, their corpses falling to the ground. The remaining people who were still fighting at the city gates had a bad feeling and immediately retreated into the city. Buzz. The light trembled, and the openings in the Great City Barrier Formation were blocked again. The human cultivators who had not yet rushed and were blocked outside. What awaited them was a swarm of outsiders. Nearly 1/5 of the cultivators left the city and scattered in all directions. Some of them did indeed go to look for Zichen, but some chose to escape. As for what they did, Songshan did not care. He only needed to wait here for 10 days. If Zichen did not appear, this city would be destroyed. Then he would go to the next city and wait until Zichen appeared. The longer Zichen delayed, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. In a mountain forest, hundreds of cultivators were scattered. These people were looking for Zichen because their families were still in the Jizei region. But in such a large world, it was easier said than done to find a heaven-defying cultivator who wanted to hide. It was impossible to find him. Since they could not find him, they could only shout. Fortunately, they were all cultivators. Even if they shouted, their voices could be heard dozens of miles away. "Zichen, Lord Zichen. Lord Zichen, where are you? Lord Zichen, the Jizei region will be massacred by the outsiders in 10 days. Please hurry over and help." The shouts could be heard dozens of miles away. When the other cultivators heard them, they followed suit. For a time, within hundreds of thousands of miles of the Jizei region, voices searching for Zichen could be heard everywhere. Zichen sat cross-legged at the top of his world origin. His clones sat cross-legged beside him. The heaven-defying energy condensed by these clones would rush to Zichen's true body. As time passed, the heaven-defying energy around Zichen increased in number. It was like a ribbon of energy revolving around Zichen. Zichen opened his eyes and looked at the harvest of the past month. A bitter smile appeared on his face. Because he had too many laws, condensing the heaven-defying energy was extremely difficult. Looking at the situation before him, even with the help of his clones, Zichen would need hundreds of years to condense all the world origin energy into heaven-defying energy. However, the amount of heaven-defying energy he had condensed in this month was thousands of times more than when he had killed the winged planet. Just as he relaxed his mind, the voice from the outside world entered Zichen's ears through the world origin energy. Zichen was stunned at first, but when he heard the contents of the shouts, his expression turned ugly. Obviously, the outsiders were using the lives of the cultivators in the Jizai region to threaten him and force him to show himself. If he did not show himself, the other party would continue to do this. Damn it! Zichen had already experienced the methods of the outsiders. This time, they had taken the initiative to provoke him. It was obvious that they had gathered enough heaven-defying cultivators. There's still 5 days left. I'll try to condense more heaven-defying energy. Time was of the essence. Every bit of heaven-defying energy would increase Zichen's battle strength. So Zichen continued to condense. For the cultivators in the Jizai region, time passed by too quickly. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. None of the cultivators who had left earlier returned. Zichen did not appear either. There were only 5 days left until the massacre. The entire city was filled with anxiety and despair. On the brink of death, their emotions fluctuated greatly. If not for the suppression of the heaven realm, they might have done something extreme. Chapter 1940. 10 days passed quickly. During these 10 days, the cultivators of the auspicious lake territory were suffering. They were waiting for death. It was a countdown to their lives. The mood of the cultivators in the city fluctuated greatly. If it weren't for the territory master and the heaven realm experts in the city maintaining order, the entire city would have fallen into chaos before the alien tribes could slaughter them. Looking at the restless cultivators in the city, Songshan smiled and slowly walked forward. Lifting their heads to look at Songshan, all the cultivators in the city felt hopeless. 10 days had passed, and the city was about to be slaughtered. The only person who could save them, Zichen, hadn't come. Guys, I'm sorry. Zichen isn't here. You guys should die too. As his cold voice sounded, the alien tribes surrounding the city retreated. Right after that, the Heaven Realm experts of the alien tribes moved forward. Next, the great formation protecting the city would be broken by the alien tribes. The city was in chaos. Cries and screams of despair echoed. The alien tribes grinned fiendishly, waiting for the formation to be broken and the city to be slaughtered. However, at this moment, the Heaven Realm experts of the alien tribes outside the city suddenly sensed something. They turned around and looked. A cold, murderous aura appeared in that direction. Feeling that murderous aura, Songshan smiled. The other heaven-defying experts also changed their countenances. They knew that Zichen was here. The chaotic people in the city didn't see the alien tribes attacking the city. They lifted their heads and looked at the sky skeptically. All of the foreign races who were about to attack the city suddenly turned around and looked in the same direction. Many of them had panicked looks on their faces. Zichen was here. The so-called strongest heaven-defying expert had come. His murderous aura filled the entire area, making many alien tribes change their countenances. Under Zichen's pressure, many alien tribes felt stifled, and they found it hard to breathe. It's the heaven-defying expert. He's here. He's the heaven-defying expert of the Life Star. His aura is so intimidating. Zichen appeared at the end of the crowd. He was wearing a black cloak, slowly walking toward them from the horizon. The eyes of all the heaven-defying experts lit up. Zichen was their primary target. As long as they could kill Zichen, they wouldn't have any other missions and could do what they wanted to do. That's him, Zichen, the heaven-defying expert of the Life Star. Carrie recognized Zichen at a glance and said in a deep voice. Back then, he and Zichen were evenly matched, but now, just looking at Zichen made him feel immense pressure in his heart. He is indeed stronger than before, Kula said with a solemn expression. As Zichen approached, the cultivators of the auspicious lake region also saw Zichen. There were many legends about Zichen, but this was the first time they were seeing Zichen. He looked so young. His bright eyes were filled with cold killing intent. When Zichen arrived, he completely ignored the alien army. In his eyes, there were only the 6 heaven-defying experts. According to Zichen's estimation, there should be more than 10 heaven-defying experts. However, there were only 6, which was somewhat out of his expectation. However, this was also good. After killing 6 heaven-defying experts, he would have 6 fewer enemies in the future. He does have some skills. After seeing Zichen, the arrogant Huaming's expression became solemn. Obviously, he also felt the pressure from Zichen. Song Shan waved his hand, and the nearby Heaven Realm experts immediately flew back. Ordinary Heaven Realm experts weren't qualified to interfere in the battle between heaven-defying experts. Except for the heaven-defying experts, all the other alien races retreated far away, nervously looking ahead. There, the 6 heaven-defying experts stood side by side, facing Zichen. Since the 6 heaven-defying experts were so cautious, it was obvious that Zichen made them feel a lot of pressure. Attack! When the 2 sides met, it was either you die or I die. Naturally, there wasn't much to say. As Song Shan's cold voice rang out, the joint attack of the heaven-defying experts began. Huaming took a step forward, and flames burned around him. The flames moved forward, instantly forming a fire dragon in the air. Roar! The moment the fire dragon appeared, it seemed to have a soul. A loud dragon roar rang out between heaven and earth. The dragon's roar was loud and clear, full of killing intent. Its huge body was hundreds of feet long, and its cold dragon eyes swept over Zichen. This was Huaming's fire dragon kill, a heavenly Dao technique with strong offensive power. The Heaven Realm experts, who were worried at first, calmed down a little when they saw the fire dragon. Fire dragon kill. A low cry sounded out in his heart. The fire dragon once again roared. Its body wriggled as it charged towards Zichen. As the fire dragon moved, heaven and earth trembled, and waves of energy spread out. The group of Heaven Realm experts retreated again and again, their faces full of shock. The great protective array above the auspicious lake region also began to tremble, bringing with it great waves. The fire dragon moved forward. Before it exploded, it had already activated the great protective array. This shocked the cultivators in the city. Looking at the advancing fire dragon and feeling its powerful force, Zichen remained unmoved. He allowed the energy to blow at his robe and black hair. Just as the fire dragon was about to reach him, he slowly stretched out his hand. Above his palm, a golden light enveloped it. The golden light spread out, forming a huge hand of energy in the air. The hand bent and grabbed the fire dragon's head. The fire dragon, which had an extremely powerful aura, was caught in Zichen's hand in an instant. It couldn't move, and only its tail was still swinging back and forth. As soon as the fire dragon kill was used, Huaming's face was filled with confidence. However, this confidence instantly froze. His eyes widened, and he looked in front of him in disbelief. The fire dragon had already fallen into Zichen's hand. The expressions of the other 5 heaven-defying sovereigns changed when they saw that the fire dragon was unable to break free despite being grabbed by the hand. When the cultivators in the city and the outsiders saw that the terrifying fire dragon was so easily restrained, their faces were filled with shock and horror. Boom! The golden hand exerted force, and the fire dragon exploded. Violent flames fell from the sky like a rain of fire. Through the rain of fire, the crowd saw that Zichen's indifferent expression revealed a mocking smile. Damn it! Being underestimated like this, the shock in Huaming's heart was immediately replaced by anger. He wanted to attack again. Suddenly, the cry of a crane rang in his ears. The cry grew louder and louder. When Huaming turned around, he saw that in front of Qiannai there were already spirit cranes flashing with bright light. Each spirit crane was formed by pure, heaven-defying energy. The aura they emitted could make heaven realm experts tremble. At a glance, there were hundreds of spirit cranes, and each of them could kill an ordinary heaven realm expert. 1,000 cranes strike. As the indifferent voice resounded through the world, the hundreds of spirit cranes turned around and stared at Ziqin. After hundreds of crane cries, the spirit cranes rushed toward Ziqin. Ziqin looked at the approaching spirit cranes. He still stood in the same place without moving, but the golden light released from his body became more dazzling. A golden light shield appeared from Ziqin's body and began to spread, expanding to 100 feet away. When the spirit cranes arrived and touched the light shield, their bodies instantly exploded. As the energy explosions continued to sound in the world, the spirit cranes that touched the light shield created ripples of destruction. Just as the number of spirit cranes decreased, the area of the light shield also shrank. In the end, the hundreds of spirit cranes disappeared. The light shield around Ziqin also shrank to his side. With a thought from Ziqin, the light shield disappeared. The mocking smile at the corner of his mouth stretched, and his cold voice sounded. "This move of yours is not mature yet. Only the Real 1,000 crane can threaten me." Qiannai's expression suddenly changed. He did not expect that his powerful attack could not even break through the opponent's defense. The 6 heaven-defying sovereigns' expressions turned ugly when the move that they thought was powerful failed to do anything to Ziqin. "Do you have any other moves? If not, it's my turn." Ziqin's cold voice sounded. "Damn it! How dare you provoke me like this? Watch my fire dragon art." Huaming was the first to lose his temper and roared. Previously, he had turned into a dragon and used the fire dragon kill. In the next moment, he turned into a dragon and used the fire dragon art. The huge fire dragon was completely centered around him, forming a heaven-defying dragon. This fire dragon looked more realistic, and its aura was more powerful. "Die." A cold voice came from the dragon's mouth. The fire dragon extended its fangs and claws and rushed toward Ziqin. This attack was much more powerful than before. It was Huaming's last move, and few could withstand it. Looking at the fire dragon, Ziqin's expression became slightly more serious. In his hand, a light flashed and a heavenly blade appeared. The expressions of the foreign races in the crowd changed when they saw the heavenly blade. They recognized that it was the heaven-defying weapon of the winged planet. The hesitation on Qiannai's face disappeared. The hundreds of spirit cranes that had just disappeared reappeared. These spirit cranes instantly regrouped, and with Qiannai as the base, they turned into an even bigger spirit crane. This was the spirit crane strike. Qiannai was not familiar with it, but Ziqin's strength was beyond his expectations. He could only use it. This spirit crane was not the slightest bit smaller than the fire dragon. After it appeared, its ice-cold eyes stared at Ziqin. With a light flap of its wings, it transformed into a ray of bright light and charged toward Ziqin. "Everyone, let's attack together." Song Shan also shouted and took out his own heaven-defying weapon. He turned into a stream of light and followed the fire dragon and the spirit crane to attack Ziqin. The 3 heaven-defying cultivators who had fought with Ziqin before looked at each other. They also gripped their heaven-defying weapons and followed the fire dragon and the crane. The battle instantly turned into 6 heaven-defying cultivators ganging up on Ziqin, which was very surprising. After the initial surprise, it was followed by shock. The 6 heaven-defying cultivators attacked at the same time. It was obvious that they felt threatened by Ziqin. Looking at the 6 people rushing toward him, Ziqin's lips curled into a cold smile. In his hand, the heaven-defying weapon that belonged to the winged planet suddenly released a powerful aura. A heaven-defying saber light surged from the tip of the saber and immediately slashed at the fire dragon. Chi! When the fire dragon met the saber light, its blazing flames were instantly extinguished. Its powerful attack was cut open by the saber light before it could be used. Swoosh! Chapter 1941. Zichen swung his blade forward, and the blade light swept past Huaming's body like a waterfall. The energy fire dragon around Huaming disappeared, and his eyes widened as he stared at Zichen. In the auspicious lake region, all the cultivators in the city raised their heads to look at the battlefield in the sky. Their expressions were extremely nervous. Outside the city, the foreign races also looked at the battlefield in the sky nervously. Zichen's powerful blade had caused the faces of all the foreign races to change. After the powerful blade slashed down, Zichen did not look at Huaming anymore. This was because the spirit crane that Qiannai had transformed into had already arrived in front of Zichen. Buzz! The long blade in his hand trembled slightly and hung in the air. Then the blade turned 90 degrees and slashed horizontally at the spirit crane. Buffed! This slash was like a hot knife through butter. It swept past Lingi's body in an instant. At the same time, the saber gleam spread in all directions like a waterfall. The powerful energy wave that was produced directly pushed back the 3 people who followed behind. Song Shan's figure swayed slightly. His entire body passed through the energy wave and arrived in front of Zichen. His weapon, which was imbued with heaven-defying energy, was aimed at Zichen's head. Buzz! Looking coldly at Song Shan, the void trembled again. Zichen's body flashed with a bright golden light. In front of him, a golden energy ball appeared in front of Song Shan. Looking at the energy ball, Song Shan's expression suddenly changed. Boom! The dazzling energy instantly exploded, forming a terrifying ripple. As the ripple spread, Song Shan's body was the first to bear the brunt of the impact and was sent flying. The 4 of them retreated one after another. Their faces were filled with unconcealable shock. The 6 of them together were unable to gain any advantage over Zichen. The violent energy gradually dissipated in the sky. Zichen stood in the sky. Not far from him were Huaming and Qiannai. The 2 of them were still standing in the same place, motionless, as if they had lost their minds. The rest of the foreign races looked at the 2 of them with puzzled expressions. It seemed that since the beginning of the battle, the 2 of them did not make any further moves after their attacks were broken. Hurry up and retreat! Carrie, who did not notice anything unusual, shouted at the 2 men in front of him. If the 6 of them joined forces, they could still barely deal with Zichen. Therefore, nothing must happen to the 2 of them, especially not because of their carelessness. However, his shout did not have any effect. The 2 of them remained motionless. Just as they were feeling puzzled, the flickering light around Huaming's body disappeared. The aura that represented life also instantly disappeared. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, Huaming's body split apart and fell to the ground. Huaming was split into 2 and died. Dead, Huaming is dead. The shock on Carrie's face immediately turned into horror as he stared at Huaming's body in disbelief. How is this possible? Shan and Quilla also widened their eyes and looked ahead in disbelief. Huaming, one of the 2 strongest people in the team, had actually been killed in a single strike. Moreover, they hadn't even noticed it. The battle prowess Zichen had displayed was truly shocking. Looking at Huaming's body that had been split into 2, cries of surprise could be heard from afar. This scene was completely unexpected, since Huaming had been killed in a single strike. What about the motionless Qiannai? He wasn't any weaker than Huaming. Had he also suffered the same fate? Everyone subconsciously turned their heads and stared at Qiannai. They saw Qiannai's body suddenly split apart from his waist. His life force was completely gone. He had actually died. Uffed. While they were shocked, Song Shan could no longer suppress his churning organs. He directly coughed out a mouthful of blood. His face was filled with horror. In a battle where 6 heaven-defying experts formed a siege, the 2 strongest heaven-defying experts on their side had actually died. Moreover, they had been killed in an instant. This was completely different from what they had originally planned. It should be known that when the 6 of them joined forces, even if they could not defeat Zichen, the 6 of them could easily retreat. However, the truth was that from the beginning of the battle until now, they had not even touched the corner of Zichen's clothes. Huaming and Qian Nai had been killed in an instant. Damn it! Cursing in his heart, Song Shan's face was filled with regret. In the history of heaven-defying experts on life stars, there were almost no weaklings. He had long noticed the strength of the current heaven-defying expert, Zichen. In his heart, he had never agreed with the 6 of them taking the initiative to provoke Zichen. The facts proved that his guess was not wrong. Zichen was indeed ridiculously strong. Run. Although this word should not exist in the world of heaven-defying experts, this was the first thought that popped into Song Shan's mind when he saw the scene in front of him. Therefore, he did not hesitate to turn this thought into action. He turned around and ran. Although the other 3 heaven-defying experts were relatively weak, they were absolutely not stupid. They also ran. However, in such a situation, even a fool would run away. In one exchange, 2 had died and 1 was injured. This kind of battle was really impossible to continue. The scene was already shocking. But in the next moment, when the 4 heaven-defying experts ran away, everyone cried out in alarm. In the city, the cultivators belonging to the auspicious lake region recovered from their shock and burst into cheers. The 4 heaven-defying experts ran away, proving that Zichen had won and they were safe. Looking at the 4 heaven-defying experts running away, Zichen's eyes flashed. He threw out the long blade in his hand. It turned into a stream of light, surrounded by heaven-defying energy, and flew toward Songshan. At the same time, Zichen stretched out his hand again. In his palm, 3 streams of pure heaven-defying energy appeared. As soon as these streams of energy appeared, they created a huge pressure that shook people's minds. Whoosh! Zichen gently blew with his mouth. The 3 streams of heaven-defying energy were like light feathers. They spun in the air and chased after the 3 who were running away. The long blade, which had turned into a stream of light, caught up with Songshan in an instant. Scram! As death approached, Songshan turned around and shouted angrily. The sharp blade in his hand slashed at the long blade. Clang! The sharp blade hit the long blade and was instantly repelled. Then, the long blade easily pierced through Songshan's body. Songshan stopped all his movements. He lowered his head and looked at the heavenly blade in front of his chest. His face was full of regret and shock. If he had known this would happen, he would have continued to bewitch him. His consciousness dissipated in regret. As for Carrie and the other 2, when they sensed the danger, they also turned around to counterattack. However, it was useless. The 3 of them were not much different from Wingstar. In Zichen's eyes, they were like ants. Moreover, Zichen had used more energy this time than when he killed Wingstar. Boom! 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 3 consecutive explosions resounded between heaven and earth. After these explosions, 3 powerful rays of destructive light appeared, illuminating the world. When the 3 powerful lights gradually disappeared, the bodies of Carrie and the other 2 had disappeared. They had been forcibly blasted into nothingness. Not even their bones were left. Only 3 heaven-defying weapons were left floating in the air. However, in the face of Zichen's pressure, they did not even dare to reveal their true forms. The battle between the 6 heaven-defying experts against Zichen ended just like that. The winner was Zichen. With a raise of his hand, the 6 heaven-defying weapons turned into streaks of light and fell into Zichen's hand. Then, Zichen's cold gaze swept across the deathly silent world and landed on the shocked and horrified faces of the alien races. Meeting Zi Chen's cold gaze, the alien race's eyes were immediately filled with fear. The golden light that had disappeared around Zi Chen reappeared. At the same time, the pressure of the heaven realm spread out, causing the world to tremble. In the sky, streaks of origin energy appeared one after another, carrying extremely powerful destructive power. When the alien races sensed this aura, their faces changed drastically. They knew that Zi Chen was going to kill them. Terrified, they immediately turned around and fled. No one can escape. A cold voice resounded in the sky, announcing the death of the foreign race army. In the sky, the origin energy transformed into origin dragons that descended from the sky and landed among the foreign races. Boom, boom, boom. The descending origin dragons exploded, transforming into a wave of destructive energy that swept through a large number of cultivators. Within the area covered by Zi Chen's aura, tens of thousands of waves of destructive energy instantly appeared and swept many alien races into it. The waves of destructive energy appeared again and again, and the alien race's miserable screams resounded through the world. In the Lucky Lake region, the cultivators watched this scene in shock. Their eyes were cold, without the slightest hint of pity. When the alien races invaded, they only knew how to kill and had no humanity. It turned out that when they sensed death, they would also feel fear. Under Zi Chen's deliberate attack, not a single one of this alien army managed to escape. Song Shan wanted to use this matter to threaten and force Zi Chen, and Zi Chen wanted to use this matter to tell the alien races not to threaten him, or else he would kill all of them. With the heaven-defying experts dead and all of the alien races killed, the Lucky Lake region's city barrier array closed, and several Heaven Realm cultivators rushed out excitedly. They had guessed that Zi Chen would enter the city next, but Zi Chen did not. In fact, he did not even look at them as he turned around and flew off into the distance. Heiss, those Heaven Realm cultivators who had flown out of the city, shook their heads and sighed at the sight of this. Evidently, there was a reason why Zi Chen did not enter the city. In the end, when everyone was in despair, they would naturally blame everything on Zi Chen, thinking that Zi Chen was the one who had harmed them. But since Zi Chen did not appear, it was inevitable that they would say some harsh words. All of the alien races were dead, but their weapons were left behind. Among the corpses, there were many shining weapons. These weapons could clearly raise the fighting power of the cultivators in the city by a large margin. And this was something that Zi Chen had done for the Lucky Lake region. But all of the Heaven Realm cultivators knew that this was the first and last time. If there were any more heaven-defying experts who used this method to threaten them, Zi Chen might not appear again. Everyone was clear in their hearts. How could the invasion of the alien races be just for Zi Chen alone? Even though it seemed like Zi Chen had obtained a dominating victory in this battle, Zi Chen had expended 90% of his heaven-defying energy. If another powerful heaven-defying expert were to appear, he might not be able to handle it. In the battle, the might of the heaven-defying energy had left Zi Chen extremely satisfied, but the lack of quantity was also evident.